Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome along to this latest round of the Creator Series. My name is Daniel Gilligan, and alongside me in the virtual commentary box today, we have, of course, our stalwart friend, Mr. Badgerman. Badger, how are we doing?
I'm doing fantastically. It's getting a little bit warm. We have mid-May, so temperatures are starting to creep up. So I don't know if I'm doing as well by the end of this broadcast, because in my room it gets particularly hot. But right now things are still looking good, and I'm very excited for this race.
Excellent. Very, very good. Very good. Yes, it's been, mid-May. Bit of a rise in temperature. That's what you expect over here. But, no, it's just been raining and cold and miserable. And it's all this.
It is the UK, to be fair.
Yeah. Well, that's also true. But as it is, then, we've got ourselves another round, of course, of the Creator Series. We are going to Silverstone this time for some great, great action that I'm sure is going to be absolutely brilliant around this circuit. It usually is, of course, on pretty much any league racing that you see around this circuit. It's a really, really good one for the racing. Now, in terms of that, let's head down to the circuit, and we can see then that here we've got our drivers in the pit lane getting ready to go. Now it looks a little bit murky, looks a little bit grey, but much like what you've just alluded to, Badger, it is the UK.
Exactly, and you never know what's going to happen with the weather. Well, to be fair, I know what's going to happen with the weather, but I'm not going to tell, because one thing that has changed for this week is the fact that we do not have a data channel today. The reason for that is that the drivers were discussing amongst each other that they wanted to rely less on telemetry, as it has made the previous races a bit too predictable, a bit too easy for some of them. And so the drivers have sort of come to the conclusion that they want to rely less on telemetry, and I've done my share to make sure of that by robbing them of the possibility of opening the data channel on a second screen. So we're not going to have that, unfortunately, today. Bit of an experiment, see how it goes. But I can tell you, at some point over the course of the evening, I'm not going to say which session or anything, but at some point, it's going to be typical British weather.
There we go then. That is the prediction from Badger. And so, well, hopefully we'll end up seeing him as Mystic Meg, which for our international audience, that's a famous fortune teller in the UK, but there we go. We've got...
I was confused by that.
Yeah, well, these things, we drop our pop culture references here and there. As it is then, we're seeing that some cars are electing to go out a little bit earlier. We've got still about half the field still in their garages. And as you can see then, we've got a relatively full field here today, as we tend to here in the Creator Series. But you'll notice that after Jorrit van Heffen, who we're on board with at the moment, as they begin their timed lap, let's watch them as they come through the final turn now, their teammate, the Shanghai Tiger, is Zhou Guanyu, here in the Creator Series for the very first time. All very exciting. I mean, as you know, I didn't know that he did creating as a side gig, but you can learn new things every day, it seems, Badger.
Well, he doesn't really create any, content, any videos, anything like that yet. But he has been playing F1 22 quite a bit in recent weeks and months. And he's actually been doing some lobbies with drivers like Hayden Gullis, like GB68, like Tom, who are all here today as well. And so I'm not surprised that he's jumping in here. But what I'm going to say right now, I would love to see him, starting a Twitch channel. I would love to see him, stream regularly from like whatever setup rig he's got going on. And just, have some fun with either open lobbies or started career mode as himself. I think that's something that we just haven't seen yet. An F1 driver jumps on the F1 game and does a career as himself. I think that would be incredible content.
I think that you may well be right. Absolutely. So, in terms of this, then we're seeing Jorrit van Heffen taking the latest in the Intermediates Challenge seriously, and is coming around the last corner now. And, in just a moment, I would say. And up towards the line they come. First time of the day for Jorrit van Heffen, a 131.5. So, as far as an opener for this one, obviously we
Oh,
will see those times go. Oh, and Hoodie Pete! I was about to say, we've got some rookies on the grid this weekend, one of which is Hoodie Pete, and he's already out!
Yeah, and I was on board with him because he was the next car that was supposed to cross the line, and he was about to start his lap, and unfortunately, what happened was he was a little bit too eager on the throttle in the final corner. Spins the car towards the pit wall, into the pit wall, and out of the race, or out of qualifying at this point. So if Bushy Ants, Tom, Razin, Swave, and Infratic all set lap times, then that's a guaranteed P20 start for Hoodie Pete.
Well, there we go then. That's massively unfortunate for them, but these things happen sometimes. Well, we'll hope that our other rookie, aside from Joe Guan Yu, of course, goes a little bit better. More on them a little bit later on. First of all, we've got Dirk Chocolate about to start, or has started their lap. Let's go on board with them now. Through turns 1 and then 2. A little bit wide of the circuit there, but it doesn't appear as though they've invalidated so far. Lifting off there through that run off of the track. Now then through the village, the loop. All of this early part of the circuit, all remade, of course, a little bit before the 2011 Grand Prix, I believe it was. We started using this format. Then we go down the Wellington Straight and in towards the Brooklands Complex, and half a tenth off of what Jorrit van Heffen has been able to do so far. Now then, through these tight winding corners here. Again, this is all really a little bit for show, given that we've got these guys all setting their times on intermediate tyres during weather, which is, well, it's cloudy, but it's not rainy just yet. In fact, what we're seeing is that for the rest of this session, it should dry up. That's what you would hope, at least. So there we are then. But as far as what we're seeing down there on the circuit, then Dirk Chocolate going through the next few corners, then all the S's here in Silverstone, Maggots, Beckett's, that sort of a thing. It's all just a fantastic area to go taking a race car around, especially when it's on the absolute upper edge of its limit. And now then, as he comes down the hangar straight and up towards Stowe Corner, let's get the car thrown in there. Dirk, there is an apex there somewhere, I think, on the right-hand side. But as they go up towards the line, then let's see what they are capable of putting out there as a time so far in this session. Of course, we should see some improvements, as I say, when we start seeing those soft tyres going onto the car. But up to the line comes Dirk Chocolate, and it is 10th for the time being, 132.8.
Yeah, not the greatest lap right there, and in all three sectors he was struggling quite a bit. If I look at the fastest sector times, didn't really look all too great from him there. First sector half a second, middle sector 7/10, and then final sector another 4/10 loss to P1, or to the purple time I should say, not to P1 necessarily, but to the purple time. And as such, overall, a 1.5 seconds down. We've got more cars coming in. Swave, who is now heading through the final corner, as well as Hayden Gullis. Swave moves himself up to P13. That is the last of those with a lap time. Here comes Hayden Gullis, P13 himself. So both drivers not doing too great. And then we've got just one more car currently out on a lap with improvement, and that is Carbon Shadow in 16. When I say improvement, obviously from no time to a time. But the first sector looks decent. Could very well end up in the midfield here, sort of around where the two Alpines are, P7, P8, Razinchai and Tom. But as we can see now as well, the skies are starting to clear up little by little. So track temperature and air temperature going to rise, and that's obviously not great for the intermediate tire, as Carbon Shadow has also invalidated. So I think the next one's going to be Beatster. And hold on, no, it's not necessarily Beatster. We've got more. We've got Temet Marduk also on a run right now, still on intermediate tires. And by the looks of things, only one driver has not gotten the intermediate championship memo. And that would be our professional in the field. That would be Zhou Guanyu.
That would be Zhou Guanyu, yeah. So, absolutely. He is currently still sat in the pit lane, of course. We've got Hoodie Pete out of the session, the only one out so far. And then we've also got Carbon Shadow. So the two Shahs that you see there on the timing tower, the Ferrari one is Carbon Shadow, and then Shanghai Tiger is Zhou Guanyu. So there we go then. So, Temet Marduk then coming through Stowe Corner, down towards the last couple of corners on this circuit then, and through the chicane they go. First the left, then the right, keeping things nice and tidy for the time being. Of course, this all still part of that intermediate championship, if you like. Up to the line he comes, and it's 8th place so far for Benjamin Daly. Not bad at all, I think it's fair to say. And now that means every driver, with the exception of those still in the pits, and Infratic, who is all the way down there at the bottom, with no time so far. However, that Red Bull driver is coming through the last corner now. And that is to start a new lap, I think, possibly that, or they've invalidated that current lap. Badger, what can you tell us about what's happened to Infratic?
Yeah, it is. It was just an out lap, so he has just started his first attempt here on the softs now. As any previous attempts on intermediates, he was out for 3 laps on intermediate tyres. All of those were invalid in one form or another, so no improvements there, no times set there. So this is his first timed run in this case that can potentially end up being a lap, as the previous ones were cut out from the timing, and this one should be, quite frankly, P1. Well, it's not going to be P1 because there are about 4 cars on track ahead of him. There's Van Heffen, who's going purple in 2 sectors right now as he's heading through Stowe and towards Vale, and that's going to be a definite P1 lap from him, granted against all the intermediate times. But what kind of lap time is it going to be? The clock is ticking. 27.4 is where it stops, and that is our first marker of the session. Infratic now heading through Stowe as well, and he is now going through Club and then Vale and then Club. I always mix these 2 up, my bad. As we have a yellow flag in sector 1, that is for cars just letting each other through, and it's 8 tenths behind, almost 9 at 28.3 from Infratic, with more lap times coming.
Absolutely, yeah. We're currently having a look at GB68. Was fastest on those intermediate tyres earlier on, of course, and now on the softs, currently on an outlap. It looks to be the case for them, so instead, let's take a look elsewhere. So currently on outlaps, we can see a bunch of drivers out there on outlaps, but I'll tell you who is not on an outlap. It's Bushy Ants. Currently then, or unless they are in the 3rd sector, in which case...
It is an outlap. It is an outlap.
There we go then. So good old 3rd sector glitch hitting us there. But
Vince is on a flyer.
Yeah. Who is on a flyer, sorry?
That guy Vince in P7 right now.
That guy Vince, excellent.
And he's just gone double green, obviously. But if we compare his sector so far to Van Heffen's, first sector 2 tenths lost, middle sector 3 tenths lost, so should be around 5 to 6 tenths behind P1 right now, but he's going to be Infratic unless something major happens. And whoa, almost missed out there.
Very close.
He beats Infratic just by half a tenth there in the end. Not that great of a run ultimately, but Matty D also crossed the line, and I think that's where the really close elimination zone is going to be. 28-2, 28-3. That's where they all bunch up right now. That might be where eliminations could potentially happen, either there or directly below.
So there we are then. GB68 has now finally started the lap. Is currently going through the old start-finish straight from the old layout of Silverstone, of course, and down towards what was the first corner is now just another of the series of fast corners around here. Cops Corner. Through they go then and down towards Maggots and Beckett's then. And they're currently with the fastest first sector of anybody. Let's see how the rest of this sector is shaping out for them. The second sector here, they're currently tumbling down the order. You've got Carbon Shadow going into P6 just above them there. Matty's gone up to P5 as well. Currently 1.5 tenths down on Van Heffen at the moment is GB68, so let's see whether or not they're able to just manage to overhaul the Alfa Romeo driver at all. And if they are, then whereabouts will that benchmark be for everybody else to go chasing after? As it is then through the final sector we come. And GB then through the final turn, up to the line they come, and that Aston Martin goes P2, 2.5 tenths shy of what was managed by the Alfa Romeo driver.
Yeah, meanwhile, we've had more laps come in from Swave as well, who's in P8. Dirk Chocolate just crossing the line in P9. Tiamat Marduk is coming across the line to start a lap, not exactly to finish one. We also have Hayden Gullis, who is going to finish a lap here, and goes P9, just ahead of Dirk Chocolate, who is now in 10th.
Certainly is, and so let's watch then as Ben Daly starts to wind on the power here. Let's also take a look at the fastest sectors. Unsurprisingly, it's GB68 in the first sector, Jorrit van Heffen in the second and third sectors. So it's all looking good as far as they're concerned so far in this one. Timet Marlik, Ben Daly goes 1 and a bit tenths slower in that first sector than what GB has been able to do. So that is the situation for them currently. Let's see what their live speed is as they start to go through Copse Corner. Now earlier on, when we had this graphic up before, we were seeing about 255 kilometers an hour with drivers on the intermediate tyre. Now then, on the softs, well, we're still looking at over 275 kilometers an hour there. So a huge amount of speed increase there as they come down towards turn 10, 11, 12 and 13. The S's section. So Maggots and Beckett's, here we come then. And through they go now. Bushy Answers retired from the session, as have a couple of other drivers as well. Some by their own volition and some by, well, mistakes. So up they come then to Stoke Corner. Does Ben Daly. Hooks the car in. Hopefully this time they're not going to want to repeat what happened in Miami, where of course they were out in Q1. But now, let's see how things go here in Silverstone for them. Through the last couple of corners we come then, up towards the final turn. And now then, planting the power, getting the car driven through. It's P5 for Ben Daly.
Yeah, that is safety most likely. Meraki, meanwhile, went P2, just ahead of the McLaren of Timet Marlik, with only 9 milliseconds behind Van Heffen. So once again, Meraki, the qualifying merchant of the Creator Series, #1 in polls this season and in Creator Series history. And he shows once again that he is certainly a force to be reckoned with when it comes to qualifying. Whether it will translate to the race, we shall see. But I was talking to him earlier and I was suggesting to him that he's going to get P1 here in qualifying and then P3 in the race. And he said, yeah, that's likely how it's going to go.
Well, there we are then. So, currently we've got 3 drivers then, currently in the drop zone with a timed lap on the board, but 1 driver, crucially, who does not have one. And it's this one right here, Shanghai Tiger, known also as Zhou Guanyu. So, let's see then how they're able to fare in this one. They've got just 2 minutes to go in the session now. And as we ride on board with them, we can see behind, no drivers behind them at the moment. There is a car just starting to exit Maggots and Beckett's now and coming down towards them. And as they come into Stoke Corner then, they're going to be getting ready to just fire on away and give us what I hope is going to be a very quick lap around here. All that build-up, all that suspense. Let's see what it all boils down to for the Alfa Romeo Formula 1 driver. Through the final turn we come now. And Zhou Guanyu will start us off on a lap of Silverstone that we will stick with all the way on board unless they happen to bin it. So, into the first corner then, and they're taking all of the curb on entry and at the apex, keeping it nice and tidy there as they then come down in towards the right-hander, making sure to bleed off as much speed as they can before then getting the car back across the circuit and turned into the left-hander and then onto the power once more. Going on to the Wellington straight, then DRS open there, and now they'll start to power down towards that final part of the first sector. Let's see where they go. They're actually 100th down on GB68 in the first sector. Bit wide of the apex in the left-hander, but then into the right, they're going for a bit more of that V'd line, it looks like. A bit more Sebastian Vettel-esque style driving there, rather than going to the apex and then driving out from there. Meraki has retired from the session. Lots of drivers now deciding to call time on this session after setting their times. And now then, out of Copse Corner we come then. And Zhou Guanyu looking very, very pacey, looking very, very speedy indeed. Through the next few corners we come then. Maggots, Beckett's, and down towards Chapel as well. And now then, as they start to build up that pace, DRS opens once again. Down the hangar straight we go. They're just 900ths of a second off of what has been set at the very top of the pile. And now then, into Stoke Corner we come then. Is this going to be P1, or is this going to be just a podium position for the Formula 1 driver versus the creators? Down into this third sector we come then, through the last couple of corners. Zhou Guanyu, what are you able to do for us here today? Across the line they come, and it's P3 in their first run in qualifying.
Yeah, and I think that's going to go down well with Van Heffen and Meraki, because they can now legitimately claim that they've beaten an F1 driver, a real F1 driver, on the F1 game in Zhou Guanyu. But nevertheless, a very, very good lap from him. If I look at the sector times, first sector, he was basically spot on. I mean, the purple first sector is a 27.5 from GB68. Zhou Guanyu was 13 milliseconds behind that. Basically spot on. Middle sector, he lost a little bit to Meraki's purple middle sector, but even then, only 800ths of a second. And then in the final sector, I think that is where the troubles happened for Zhou. That's where he lost most of the time, because there he's 0.17 seconds behind the purple final sector by Van Heffen, and 0.14 behind Meraki as well. So that's where he lost all of that time. First two sectors were fantastic, but that middle sector he needs to work on. Meanwhile, we already have eliminated Ilkay, Carbon Shadow, Liam, and Hoodie Pete. We're waiting for Beatster, and Beatster has invalidated. So the session is effectively over. Dirk Chocolate does still improve to P11, but that is it. Hayden Gullis scrapes by into Q2 in P15 there, and everyone ahead of him also through into Q2. So we say goodbye to Liam, Carbon Shadow, Ilkay, Beatster, and Hoodie Pete. So both debutants here in P19 and 20 today. Not the start they were hoping for.
Absolutely not the start that they were hoping for. However, a start that some drivers were hoping for. From 1st to 15th, they will be very happy indeed with how that qualifying session went for them. And so to talk you through then, let's take a look there. We've got Jorik Van Heffen at the top, then Meraki, then Shanghai Tiger, Zhou Guanyu, then GB68, Bushy Ants, that guy Vince, Timet Marduk, Ratsin Chai, Savso, Tom, Dirk Chocolate, Infratic, Matty, and then Swave and Hayden Gullis. Then in the drop zone, it is Liam, Carbon Shadow, Ilkay, Beatster are one of our rookies, and then Hoodie Pete out in the first part of this session as well. So, interesting thing there. I mean, what do we reckon? Are we thinking that's the drivers who were, not quite able to get themselves into that place of, they're new ultimately. We've got a few drivers who are new, and they've not quite been able to, get themselves into that window possibly. Maybe the intimidation of the competition has gotten to them, because with the exception of Zhou Guanyu, they're all at the bottom of the list.
Yeah, could very well be the case that they just maybe weren't expecting the pace coming from these drivers, because it all looks, easy. They make it all look easy. If we watch someone like Timet Marduk or Tom or GB68 or Meraki, they all make it look easy, but there's so much that goes into the lap, that goes into their precision and how quick they are. So, it all looks easy, but to actually be there and do it, I think maybe they took it a little bit too easy, thinking, it'll be okay, it'll be fine. And then now they find themselves in P19 and 20. Again, for Hoodie Pete, of course, it was a case of losing the car on the final corner, crashing out, and not being able to continue. But for Beats, yeah, I think it may be bad timing as well, maybe a mistake, because he only had one flying lap as well. So that was a bit of a struggle for him. But we are in Q2 now with 15 minutes remaining. And let's see who the first one is out on the circuit. We already have, if I see that correctly, one car choosing the intermediates, and that is P1 from Q1. Well, it is Van Heffen choosing Inters.
Well, what we're going to do then is, whilst we watch these cars start to come out onto the field, I have been told that we have our analyst here today. They have been able to return. Let me just pull up their camera first of all, because then we can see their beautiful face. It is none other than Nathan Richards who joins us in the commentary box here today. And they should at least be popping up on camera there. There we go. Now then, let me just look for your... you don't have your screen sharing feed open, Nathan. What on earth are you doing, sir? You tell me you're ready? You're not ready. What's going on?
Well, my end, the stream is there. I'm looking at Ben's screen at the moment, so that should pop up.
I see. Right, I thought that was just Benjamin Daly's thing in the thing. There we go. Well, there we are. So, have you got a clip for us ready?
Unfortunately, no. But I'd like to say I did not expect to see Zhou Guanyu on the grid today. That's definitely probably a surprise of the week. Definite.
I would imagine so. Yes, that's looking like it's a bit of a surprise for us all. I think it's fair to say. But I'll tell you what. Shall we stop giving Ben some free advertising here? It's not as if he needs it. I will move away and take us back to the racing screen. So let's take a look at that. And Dan in chat asking, can someone tell me why Badger isn't doing the data channel? Well, how about Badger tells you himself?
Yeah, so the drivers were talking after the last race about not wanting to use telemetry, about, not being able to rely on telemetry as much, especially weather data. And so what I've decided to do to make it a bit harder for them, because I know for a fact that some of them had the data channel open on a second screen, I decided to just not run the data channel so they can't have that open on the second screen anymore.
So there you are then. Comprehensive answer from the man himself who runs it. So there we go. You see, we provide for the community here on the Creator Series. We make sure that you get the updates that you desire, you need, as soon as you need them. So there we go then. We've got Safso currently on their outlap, and I'm sure that they will be going on to that timed lap in the not too distant future. Now, in terms of them then, no time set so far, of course, but it's been an interesting season for Safso. I mean, as you've mentioned before, they're a champion of the Creator Series, but they've not necessarily looked to be quite so threatening this time to the title. Any sort of reasons why, you think, in particular?
I think it's just a matter of some other drivers stepping up, as Safso has just invalidated his lap there through Beckett's, and that is going to ruin his attempt. Who's going to be the next one behind him? That should be not Swave. He is on an out lap. It's going to be Matty D13 and P10 who is going to be the first one, but he's sort of being held up here a little bit by Van Heffen. That's not great, and Van Heffen's on Inters as well, so really bad situation here, as we do expect GB68 here soon, 130.1, but it's going to be a lot better. Purple first sector again from GB, and a 27.9 to boot. That is a fantastic lap. But Bushiant's also coming through, 28.1 with a purple middle sector from him. More laps incoming. We've got Tiamat Marduk. Lap is not that good. Oh, whoa. We have a purple middle sector from Shanghai Tiger, Zhou Guan Yu. Coming through Stowe. A lot going on at the same time here. We have also Infratic just finished the lap, goes P4. Tiamat Marduk went P3, but Zhou Guan Yu with the purple middle sector. Did he clean up the final sector? Not quite. Misses out by 0.02 of a second against GB68. But a better final sector than he did in Q1. So there is improvement. It's just a matter of cleaning it up a little bit more, and he can definitely challenge for pole position here.
Absolutely, yeah. And of course, this is only Q2. We've still got 10 more minutes of this to go, and then we're into Q3. So it's still plenty of time for them to get their eye in, figure out how best they're going to navigate all of this, and then go for it in Q3, of course. And that's then where it counts. That's where the marbles are won. There are no marbles. I just, figure of speech. There are no marbles, though. Maybe we should make some marbles. Who knows? Maybe we should seize upon that particular advertising opportunity. Swave has been able to jump up into P5 as well, so it's been good for them so far. And in terms of the timing gaps, well, there they are for you. They are incredibly close between the drivers at the sharp end in particular. But then for everybody following on behind, so Ras and Chai has just put in a time there, 128.4, and that's what, 0.3 off the pace?
Yeah, it's half a second behind P1 right now, but I want to note, this was his second lap on these tires, back to back. He backed off the first one after invalidating, and he didn't recover all the energy from the first one. So he started the lap down a little bit on energy, enough that he ran out of energy by the time he got to Stowe. So the battery was not fully charged anymore. He didn't get full acceleration. That certainly cost him at least a 10th, maybe two. Now add the tire disadvantage from the second lap being the one that he put in, the first one being invalidated, and all of a sudden Razin Chai's lap is a lot better than it looks.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, given all of that you've just been able to break down for us there, that does show that there's a huge amount more pace in that car. Now, as far as other drivers out on the circuit are concerned, then right now Safso's just completing their out lap. Let's just take a quick look elsewhere to see if anybody is close to finishing their lap. Meraki is coming through the second sector now. It's nearly at the end of that second sector. That guy Vince as well is on a good lap at the moment. They're just a bit ahead on the circuit right now. So that guy Vince then is currently going through that third and final sector. Then hopefully they should be able to hook up a good lap here, give us some good close competition, but as it is, then they come through the last couple of corners, And whereabouts will this AlphaTauri end up sitting in the pecking order? Across the line they come, and it's P8 for that guy Vince. Then, if we jump back to Meraki in the Williams, let's see what they are capable of doing. So, round the last couple of corners they come, and then up to the line comes Meraki, and it's third place by 0.07 of a second. This is a close Q2 up at the sharp end.
Yeah, it certainly is. We've got one more car coming in the middle sector, at the end of the middle sector right now. That is Tom, the Dutch phenomenon who tried to steal an Alpine car within the last couple of days. If you've seen the video, it was absolutely hilarious. He didn't actually try to steal it, but he made it look like he tried. But he's actually aborting his lap, going into the pits. Did not like the middle sector. Oh, yeah, he had a huge mistake in the middle sector. Lost 9 seconds. After a solid first sector of 27.7, lost less than 0.2 to GB, but that is the lap aborted. Meanwhile, Safso coming through club and across the line, and it's P1. Like a quarter of a second here from Safso. Hello.
I'll tell you.
That is... We just talked about him earlier.
I was going to say he must have taken that personally. That's the only thing I can think of there. Because all of a sudden, very good indeed. Well done, Sasso. I take back everything I said.
that is the sign of champions, to be fair. And he is a champion. He won the first season. He is the reigning defending champion, and that is something that champions tend to do. For those of you who may have watched the Michael Jordan documentary, he took a lot of things personally. So much so that even a meme came out of it. But that's something, you got to find motivation. And Safsa, maybe those comments, maybe he heard them. And maybe those were the motivation he needed to show us and prove us wrong.
Perhaps that was the case. On board with Hayden Gullis then, as they go down towards Copse Corner. Doesn't look like a particularly out there lap.
He's invalidated, and he's backed off.
Yeah.
So that explains everything.
I was going to say, it looked very pedestrian, did that driving.
Yeah,
but
he already, in the first sector, I think he may have actually already invalidated in turn 1, which is something that is a bit rare, but because you have such a flat curb in Abbey in turn 1 on the apex, that you can take a lot of liberties with that, and if you turn in just a little bit too early, it's very easy to just cut that curb too much and invalidate immediately. So very likely that's what happened. I don't see any other, well, maybe turn 5, maybe Aintree is where he invalidated, but those are the only two where I can see it happen. Turn 5 either on apex or on exit, but I think more likely with the 37 second first sector, 10 seconds behind, I think he took out of that lap very, very early.
Quite possibly indeed. We're starting to get a smattering of drivers on the circuit again. This time it's Jorrit van Heffen that we're watching as they come through the first sector then. They're coming down towards that split time now. And will they be able to beat what GB68 was capable of doing last time? It doesn't look like it. In fact, it looks to me as if their ERS is off, given that their light is flashing on the back of that car. So potentially then they've just abandoned this lap and off to the side they go, just to go and say hello, it looks like to it was that to Dirk. That was to Dirk. So it was
Dirk, yeah.
Oh dear. Well, let's watch him on his drive of shame, back over the gravel, over the grass, and back onto the circuit. There we go then. He's at risk of being knocked out in Q2 then, is Dirk Chocolate, if he doesn't manage to produce a nice quick lap time here. And I tell you who has produced a quick lap time within the Red Bull camp, enough to get themselves up into P10 and therefore through to Q3. It's Infratic, his teammate. The fierce rivalry that exists between the two of them is a thing for the ages. It's great to see them always having a bit of a swipe at one another. It's good fun, I think, all in the end.
Yeah, certainly. One thing that I want to compare this a little bit to some of the other teams. I mean, if we think about Aston Martin with GB68 and normally Mr. Dale, again tonight, it's Hoodie Pete in the Aston Martin to replace Mr. Dale, who I have seen in the chat. So today I think his nickname is going to become Mr. Dale NS for Dale not starting. But if we think about those two battling out, if we think about the McLarens trying to best each other, Safsa and Temep Marduk, I feel like they're always trying to improve against each other. What I see with the Red Bulls is quite the opposite. They're always trying to, they're both fighting to be the number 2. They're not fighting to be the number 1. So there's always mistakes. There's always things happening. There's always some form of bottle job from both of them, as we saw with Dirk in the gravel there. And yeah, they're both really. They have very big mouths for the small feet and small hands that they have on the steering wheel and on the pedals.
I tell you what, there's an awful lot of things being said now in the final sector, which I just want to make sure these are Badger's comments and thoughts. They do not represent the thoughts of the Creator Series, nor myself. But
they can take it. They can take it.
Excellent. Good.
Shrevel, hold on. Shrevel in the chat with a fantastic analogy there. Both Red Bull drivers with that bucket crab mindset. That's exactly what it is. As Matty D13, meanwhile, goes P3. Let's get back to the action.
Yes, let's do that.
Against the Red Bulls. I do love both of them dearly. I want to make that very clear. It's just a bit of banter and good fun. But they're both absolutely great chaps. But Matty D13 with a fantastic lap there. 128 absolutely flat. And P3. Whether that will hold up to get him into Q3, we shall see. But right now, 3 cars have already retired in Safso, GB68, and Van Heffen, all under their own power.
I tell you what, we're just watching on board with Rasin Chai. The reason I've picked them to have a look at is because of what you were pointing out with their used tyre lap earlier on. And we can see then that they're just a couple of hundredths off of what has been managed by Safso in that first sector. So this is going to be an interesting lap to watch out for the rest of this one. Of course, to remind you of the fastest sectors, currently they're held by GB68, and one of the Alpine drivers may well be Rasin Chai. In fact, it must be Rasin Chai because the other Alpine isn't in this session. Oh, no, it is. It's Tom. Never mind. I'm talking nonsense. But as it is then, we then, it is Tom, in fact, because we just crossed the sector split and it was him. But yes, 200ths off is Rasin Chai as they come up towards Stowe Corner now, and then on board with the Alpine. Let's go down towards the last few corners, then just a smidgen outside the lines, and I think that may have invalidated their lap because they suddenly dive into the pit lane.
Yeah, that is painful because he could have easily gotten P2 with this lap if he just does not invalidate. Meanwhile, Temet Marduk is crossing the line here in just a moment with a decent lap. It is P1. It's more than just decent. But we also have Bushy Ants currently in P8 going through Valen Club. Double purple. This could be an insane lap. And it is! Wow! Second. You cannot do that, Bushy.
That's an incredible lap time. Absolutely incredible. Brilliant lap from Bushy Ants there to take P1 in this session. Now then, let's focus a little bit further down the order. Let's see what Infratic and the rest of that crew are doing. Well, Infratic then is coming around towards the Cops Corner here. Dirk Chocolate then is a bit earlier on the lap, going through Brooklands at the moment. So let's keep an eye on Infratic in this Red Bull intra-team battle. So 1.6 seconds and 1.8 seconds respectively off of the pace to get into Q3. And so as they come through the S's then through Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel over the second sector split goes Infratic. He's currently 4/10ths down, but that would be enough to get them up into as high as P3 if they're able to maintain that sort of time advantage all the way to the end of this one. And so up they go then through the next few corners in that final sector. I'll tell you what as well, Joe Granier has been able to slot their Alfa Romeo into P2 in amongst all of the excitement that we've been watching on board with there. It's not just the half a second to Temet Marduk, but there we go then. Cross the line comes Infratic, and it's P5 for the Red Bull driver. Now then, down to their teammate, Dirk Chocolate. Let's see what they are capable of doing. Through these last few corners they come.
First Dirk Vince is coming across the line, and that's P3 for him. And here comes Dirk then, and that is P11. No!
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear.
Dirk. That is oh no, there's going to be words between the two drivers. Infratic in Q3. Dirk Chocolate P11 not in Q3.
Oh dear.
Yeah, we're gonna hear a lot, and yeah, a couple of things to note here. Tom completely ruined his final run, starting P15. Hayden Gullis went on mediums for whatever inexplicable reason, messes up his lap, ends up P14. Rasin Chai messing up his lap, out in P12. Dirk Chocolate P11. Not quite there. Meraki almost eliminated. If Dirk finds a 10th and a half, we would see Meraki eliminated once again. it's really a tale of two versions of Meraki that we get in the Creator Series qualifying.
Certainly is.
Sort of Dr. Meraki and Mr. Hyde.
Sorry, Badger. Sorry. Just to interrupt, I just want to throw over to Nathan because Nathan has got some clips for us here that he has spotted throughout that session. I just want to make sure, whilst we've got the downtime between the sessions, we have that chance to have a look at them. Over to you, Nathan.
Hello. So first of all, I have a clip from Liam. This is on his, I believe, second run. Looking now, he's going purple in that middle sector, doing a great lap into the club chicane. Then here, he puts the throttle way too early, shift up to fifth, back to full throttle, you can see, there we are, and he loses it completely. Tries to then again go full throttle, throws him into the wall, a bit like what we saw from Sebastian Vettel in the Red Bull in Hungary, just very close to hitting that wall. Luckily as well, not hitting anyone on the way, as we can see Joe just driving past there into turn one. We have a second clip as well, which is a replay of what we saw between Dirk and Yorick. Just going to get that up on the screen very quickly. It pops up, here we are. So this is down in towards Luffield, losing the car completely, then kind of sitting nearly still on the track. Yorick coming through, has to also avoid and lock up, nearly hitting Dirk. And then they kind of part ways out of Luffield as they continue their journey on. And Dirk yet again, spinning again. Then finally, with the clip from Tom, where he spun down at the final chicane as well, bit similar to what Liam did, but just a little bit before. So going down, the sound on as he goes through. In towards Stowe, going a little bit wide there as well, bit late on the power now. Goes down in towards the club chicane. Relays and brakes, very nice, hitting the curve a little bit. And here, up to fifth, full throttle and instantly, loses it completely. Locks the rotation on the wheel and just kind of slides off to track. And you can see that. Definitely not happy about that one at all, because that would have been a great improvement. But unfortunately, yep, didn't go well at all for Tom.
Unfortunate there. Thanks very much for that, Nathan. We will be back with you a little bit later on, I am sure. So, back over to our main screen then. And sorry to cut you off like that, Badger. I just knew that we were going to have that opportunity, that one chance between the sessions to have a review of these things. Back to you and your thoughts from earlier on.
Yeah, so I feel like Meraki, we always get two versions of him. Sometimes he gets eliminated in Q1 or Q2, just completely inexplicably, and then oftentimes he gets P1 in qualifying and starts from pole position. So I want to describe it as Dr. Meraki and Mr. Hyde. And it seems like today, since he is in Q3 now, we're getting a bit more of a Dr. Meraki version, the good one, the one that actually, delivers and does what he's supposed to do. But it was close in Q2 with him, a 10th.5 from Dirk. And we wouldn't see Meraki here, we would see Dirk instead, and 2 Red Bulls in Q3. How weird would that be for the Creator Series?
I'm glad that you added the caveat of for the Creator Series on there, because I feel like it's something we've gotten rather used to in Formula One this year. Maybe it'd be
not just this year.
Well,
for the last 10 years, really.
Exactly. I mean, you go even further. You could say the last 13 years, which is a somewhat depressing thing in and of itself, that one team has consistently been there that entire time. We want some variety. We want some shake-up in Formula One. But as it is then, we're going to watch now as Safso comes across the line and starts their lap time here. So, second in that second session there. It is a battle of the McLarens, something we've not really seen around Silverstone for, oddly enough, around about 10 years or so. But as it is then, they go into the first sector, into the loop, and things are looking reasonably calm, reasonably collected so far. Badger, what do you reckon? Are they going to be on used tyres at this early stage of Q3, or are they going to be going for 2 new sets?
It has to be on used sets, because normally in the Creator Series, the drivers go for the... most of the time, they go for the balanced tyre distribution, which means they have 4 sets of soft tyres available for all of qualifying, and a medium that they would prefer not to use, because it might come in handy during the race. So, you want to make sure... Oh, he runs wide, but no invalidation there. Let off the throttle a little bit. So, yeah, you want to use a used set here, because he's used 2 sets so far. And you don't want to start a third here and then your 4th and final one in Q3, because maybe you want to keep one for the race, just in case of a late safety car, to keep your options open. So I would expect everyone who is out on track right now to be on used softs. We'll see, though. The times will not lie.
They will not. But as it is then, through the final turn, across the line goes Safso, 127.8. That is reasonably competitive, I would say. I mean, we were, what, 27-something as our final time there in Q2, I think. So
27-1 was the final time in Q1. So, Q2, sorry. So we're a little bit off that. Bushy, yeah, 3/10 off. That's where I would expect used soft tires to end up. I can try to see. I'm pretty sure he doesn't have his telemetry open to see if I can tell if anybody. Oh, actually, Van Heffen with a new set of tires, and the time definitely reflects that. That is for sure. Safsa was on used tires, as was Tiamat Marduk. And we have Meraki also out on new tires, so we're going to have to keep an eye on him for sure. And Infratic is out on used tires, so we're going to have to keep an eye on Meraki as he just starts his lap. I think we're going to go on board, or at least keep an eye on him for the whole lap here, because this might potentially... Oh, that's already the lap over.
Which drive is this for, sorry?
Too much time. Meraki.
For Meraki? Oh dear, are we already out? How has that been an out?
He got a massive moment of oversteer out of 4 out of the loop, and that compromises your line, your speed through 5 and down the Wellington Straight so much that he's already 3/10 down, and that on brand new tires. He can get P2 here. He can beat Bushy potentially, at least for now, but it's not going to be pole position with this lap. If he somehow brings that back, we're going to have to start having inspections of his computer. Oh,
well, with a big slide like that, it's not going to happen this time. I'll tell you that much. So 4.5 tenths down as they make their way up the hangar straight then. So at this point, Badger, what do you reckon? Pits or finish the lap?
You got to finish the lap. At least get a banker in. Maybe have it be a P2 or P3 in case some people invalidate. At least you got a banker down. But the hope is for Meraki that he has another set, as it is P3 now. 0.08 of a second behind Bushy and almost 0.6 behind Van Heffen, who has this absolutely incredible lap at 26. I did not expect to see a 26 in qualifying. Well, I did not expect to see a 1:26 at all today. But here we are, Van Heffen with an absolutely fabulous lap. And yeah, Meraki will have to use his final set of new soft tires if he wants to get pole position. And he has to clean up his lap, especially turn 4 and turn 13. Those are the ones where he lost the most time.
Absolutely. Now, what do you make of GB68 here on their outlap? Currently bottom of the board. Have they gone far too late for the first run, or too early for the second, or neither? Is this a good strategy going in the middle here?
Well, if he went out too late for the first one, he would also be too early for a second run, so he would kind of be both. I don't understand it really. He still has a bit more than one sector to go, so about 30 seconds in the lap. At that point, we're at 4.5. He completes the lap. Yeah, this is going to be his final run. And unless he invalidates and then can rush back into the pits, but even then, it's going to be quite close because of how long and how slow the pit lane is here. One thing we have to note is that compared to real life, the pit lane here is slower. In real life, it is the normal 80 kilometers an hour. Here, due to the fact of the finish line being so early, and to make sure that you can't just overtake someone heading into the pit lane, you know, on the final lap, for example, it's 60 kilometers an hour. So the pit lane, as long as it is already, is just significantly longer due to that tempo speed limit, and as such you don't want to spend all that time. But he's got no traffic. That's the good news for GB. He's got no traffic right now, and he is on new tires, so I think, ooh, that's a moment right there. But he held it, and it was on the entry of the corner. That's not that bad. You can still set up the exit with that little bit of a moment. That doesn't cost as much as what we saw with Meraki, who had a moment on the exit of turn 4. That costs a lot more. So this could still be a good lap. Sector 1, pretty much competitive. 0.5 tenth behind Van Heffen. Second sector, what do we get here? Oh, very close to the limit. And it is, oh, actually, first sector was purple by a tenth. My bad. middle sector, he lost 2/10, so he's down 1, but could potentially challenge Van Heffen with a good final sector, with a great final sector, but I think it's gonna be P2. I'm a bit worried. Through Vale and Club, it looks nice and tidy, as it should be. And across the line, leaves a little bit on the table there, and it is just 0.03 of a second, but it is not P1.
Yeah,
I think if he cuts it a little bit thinner on the final corner, he might have just gotten it.
Maybe. As it is, though, Jorrit Van Heffen suddenly is looking a great deal more comfortable at this stage. Prior to that lap, of course, you could see there on our fastest sectors graphic that, of course, it was completely dominated by Jorrit Van Heffen, and now it is just the second sector that he lays claim to being the fastest in, but I'm sure by the end of his lap, he may well have a greater chance of adding to that second sector there. As it is, then, let's take a look at some other drivers who are currently on their outlaps, or even their time laps. We've got Jorrit Van Heffen themselves on their outlap. They're currently going through the Brooklands section and onto that old start-finish straight. Then Bushy Ants is just going through the loop right now as well. And then Zhou Guanyu, the surprise entry in today's Creator Series race, soon to be launching their own YouTube channel, I'm sure, or Twitch channel, maybe, who knows. They come up to the final part of the lap then in the third sector. Let's ride on board with them as they make their way around the Silverstone circuit. So, into the last couple of corners we come then, winding on the power here, getting ready to completely go for this lap. And as you can see then, they cross the line at over 270 kilometers an hour. Into the first corner we come then, and this then is looking like a nice tidy beginning of the lap here for the Chinese Formula 1 driver. Into the next corner we come then, a little bit of curb on entry and then hitting the apex nicely to the inside. Then back over to the left-hand side of the circuit to then cut into that left-hander and then through onto the Wellington straight. Getting that DRS open, you can see there those numbers turning green when they've got DRS active, up to over 320 kilometers an hour, 330 even before they slam on the brakes and are just a tenth and a bit down on what Jorrit Van Heffen has been able to do. And then a big slide like what we saw earlier on in this one. And now as they start to come through the next few corners then up towards Copse Corner, is that going to play on their mind? Are they going to be able to make sure that they make up that time later on? We will wait and see, but certainly so far it's looking like that composure has been recaptured. But now just up ahead of them, they're going to have a car in their way in the S's. No, they don't. In fact, it jumps out of the way, gets out of the way of the Formula 1 driver, and now then as they come through the S's, it looks like more untidy driving there, unfortunately, for Zhou Guanyu. They're now 4/10 off. If they're not able to improve at all here, they're going to be no higher than third place here today. Into Stoke Corner we come then. This then, all the pressure wrapping on, all of the pressure just piling on top of them as they come into these last few corners. A couple of cars ahead of them, they shouldn't get in their way, and as they come around the last couple of corners then, will it be an absolutely amazing purple final sector? It is not. It is a improvement, don't get me wrong, but it's still 3/10 off of what Jorrit Van Heffen has been able to do. So, Alfa Romeo, the best qualifying team so far this weekend, but how long will it stay that way?
Yeah, that is the question, and it was really all in turn 4 where Zhou missed the apex just a little bit, and that ruined his run onto the Wellington straight, as well as we saw that big mistake heading into Luffield, that twitch that he got on the exit of Brooklands, and that really made him struggle through Luffield there. That cost him most of the time, but we have more cars coming. We've got Bushy Ants crossing the line, and it's a 26.7 and it's P2, but he's not on pole position, 0.08 of a second behind. We've also got Meraki, we've got Safzo actually, who is up by quite a bit. Tiamat Marduk has invalidated, will not improve. Safzo going to be the next one, then Matty D13 crossing the line. Safzo currently on pace for, well, quite an improvement, I can say. How much is it going to be? It will be P4. Matty D13 crossing the line. Then it's Meraki. Matty D13 P7. Meraki up half a second already. How much is it ultimately? It's P3 for him. And then that guy wins P7. And we're just waiting for Infratic to cross the line with 2 green sectors and ultimately almost an invalidation. And it is, I think, P8 for Infratic. So the 2 Red Bulls only separated by 3 places ultimately. And the race start should be interesting. But here is the final order. Van Heffen on pole position. Bushy Ants P2. That is a heck of a front row two of the favorites here. Then Meraki and GB, P3, P4, Safsa 5, Zhou Guanyu P6, Dakgovin 7, Infratic 8, Matty D13 P9, and Tiamat Marduk after invalidating P10. His lap time would have been good enough without the invalidation for P3.
There we go then. That is that is how the cookie crumbles sometimes here in the Creator Series. And in terms of crumbling cookies, I'm wondering how I'm going to make this particular segue work. Let's see what has been crumbling over the pages of Nathan's clipbook. Nathan, I understand you have an incident with sways for us to see. Sways,
so this was in Q2, coming to the end of Q2 on the final runs, and we can see now Sway just coming at the pit lane, ready to begin his final run. He comes down the pit lane, and in a few seconds we'll see the action unfold. Obviously, he'll get the pit limiter off, put the throttle down, your head out, and into the wall, and then gets damage, which means his qualifying is ultimately over, which means he couldn't improve in Q2, then couldn't get himself to Q3, and you can see them walking away, knowing he should be very, very disappointed in himself, and I'm sure his chat and the stream are also disappointed in what he managed to do there.
I got distracted.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, there you go then. They say it themselves. They got distracted. And that's the thing you absolutely cannot do in motor racing. You have to be focused at all times. Just like Badger, focused. Laser-like on the chat right now. Ben and bottling in general. I can see that. I have the power of seeing chat finally. It's only taken however many races to get this set up, but there we go. So we're just waiting for the drivers to get onto the grid then at the moment. And of course, with all that then, I mean, what do you imagine that all of the strategies are going to be like here today?
Well, the drivers will have had a look at their weather forecast, and I can tell you right now, if they did, it's going to be a couple of interesting strategies, because I'm not even sure what tyre I would pick to start the race on. With, as I mentioned in qualifying, some rain going to be happening somewhere. Yeah, I'm not sure what I would do personally. It's a very tricky one as the drivers embark on the formation lap. So, what tyre choices do we have from the drivers? Let's see. We've got medium hard for the top two. So Van Heffen medium, Bushy Ants hard, Meraki medium, GB68 hard. Then medium for Safso, Zhou, and Dakai Vince. Hard for Infratic, soft for Matty D13, hards for Tiamat Marduk, Dirk Chocolate, and Razin Chai, mediums for Swave and Hayden Gullers, softs for Tom, mediums for Liam, hards for Carbon Shadow, and then mediums for the bottom three, Elkai, Beats, and Hoodie Pete.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm confused. Why? Some of these I understand. Van Heffen on mediums makes sense. Bushy Ants on hards, again, makes sense. Meraki on mediums, GB on hards. Why is Matt, especially why is Tom on softs? I know it's served him well in the past, but when you're starting P15, you don't want to be on softs because all that extra ability of the tires is just going to get wasted because you have to constantly overtake people, or you're stuck behind them where you lose time. So either you battle and you lose time, or you're stuck behind someone and you lose time. Either way, I don't think softs are the call.
Well, we will wait and see then. We can see then that Jorrit Van Heffen, the driver that we're on board with right now, is starting to lead the field round and get these tyres warmed up. And away we'll go racing. Then their teammate, you can see their highlights on the timing tower. We've got themselves P6 in this one. So Zhou Guanyu getting ready to go racing once again then. Hopefully it's a bit of a better start than their Silverstone race was last year, and I'm sure that it will be. But here we go then, the customary donuts then that we come to expect here in the Creator Series. And oh dear, I tell you what, in modern Formula 1 that would get you disqualified or from the formation lap being just outside of your grid box like that, but there we go. So here come all the spins then for all the drivers behind, and you can see then Bushy Ants having absolutely none of that. Instead they just go straight into their box, and away they go. So we've got then ourselves a bunch of drivers ready to go in this one, and hopefully we're going to have a nice easy start, but for some it's going to be a bit less easy, like Infratic, who's just been disqualified from the formation lap for not lining up in their box. Feels the same for some other drivers as well. Look at the angle that Safzo is at too. That's a bit of a bizarre one, but there we go. So now then, we get ready to go racing here at Silverstone. We have 3, 4, 5 red lights and a dodgy camera. Lights out and away we go, and it looks like a very good start from the second place, I should say, as into the first corner we go then, and it looks like Meraki has been able to get themselves by Bushy Ants, and in the background you can see then the drivers are going all over the runoff area. It's a massive problem further back. We've got then cars falling down. The Automati in particular is all the way down to the back of the field, so too is Tom, both the soft runners down all the way at the back. Hayden Gullis has been able to make a fantastic jump up through the field. Big Guns Gullis making his way round and past a few drivers here, might even make his way past Dirk Chocolate on the run down towards the next corner. We've got in the background then Swave round, and now as we head down into Brooklands, round the outside, through goes Gullis, as up the inside he goes now on Dirk Chocolate. He's going to try his absolute best, and he's done it. He's used that extra grip available in the medium tyre to get himself ahead of the Red Bull for the time being, but now as they go through the corner onto that old start finish straight, will he just be able to push out the Red Bull? He does, and now he's got his sights firmly placed on his teammate in the top 10. Now Dirk Chocolate is then further under threat because Liam goes up the inside and now manages to get up and ahead as well into 11th place for them. For Dirk, it has all gone terribly wrong off of the start here, losing a place and now down in 12th position. Meanwhile, up at the front, we've then got Zhou Guan Yu making their way up towards the back. I say Zhou Guan Yu, it says that we're looking at P6 right now, but we're still definitely looking at Dirk. So I tell you what, let's do that. There we go. And now we are looking at Zhou Guan Yu right on the back of GB68. And in terms of this then, we are then seeing round the outside. Whoa. Great move from Zhou Guan Yu. Oh, and if only they could then keep it all together, but instead up the inside comes GB68 once again. And that then means that as they come across the line, we start to get some of these timing gaps through. Things are very, very close amongst our top 6, even our top 7. Safso right on the back of the Alfa Romeo at the moment as well. And look at this then, they go into the next few corners and just behind, emphatic then under assault from Tiamat Marduk, and that means that Ben Daly then trying their absolute best to get on through. Doesn't work for them. Meanwhile, if we take a look back behind them, you can see there Gullis just having a look here and there, trying their absolute damnedest to get into a position where they can make their way past that McLaren, and it looks like they're getting closer and closer. Ben goes defensive with those hard tyres, not as much grip available to them, and round the outside is Gullis going to go once again. No, not this time, and instead Ben Daly shuts the door.
I mean, Zhou Guan Yu is trying his hardest to get past GB68. He sent one up the inside of turn 3. He sent another one up the inside of turn 6. It's all kicking off here, and Zhou smartly understands that he doesn't want to be stuck behind these hard runners. He wants to get to the other medium runners that are out on track. He wants to get to them, and he needs to get past GB68 first, or else he's going to lose a lot of time. As, by the way, his ERS management is absolutely fantastic here over the first couple laps. Here he goes into Stowe down the inside. And GB68 with the switchback attempt. He's now on the outside for Vale, and I think Zhou Guan Yu is going to prevail and shuts the door on him. Beautiful overtake there from the Alfa Romeo driver. There goes Safso immediately to capitalize on the open door, but avoids going side by side through Abbey, which I think is a very smart thing to do when the cars are that full on fuel and that heavy.
Absolutely, yeah. Brilliant bit of movement there from Zhou Guan Yu. Brilliant bit of driving. It's almost like they're a professional racing driver or something. Who knows? Maybe it's something they should look into. They should stop doing this creative business and actually try and be a racing driver. But there we go then. We go down the Wellington Straight once more then, and DRS is open now for a lot of these cars, including for Safso and GB68. Both of them were close enough to the car in front to then start getting DRS down that straight, even though over the course of that straight there, they have then lost a great deal of time to those gaps in front. Dan is saying leader gap over intervals. A, you're wrong, and B, we can't do that with these graphics, so you're stuck with it, I'm afraid.
He's not wrong, though.
Oh, no, he is wrong.
Leader gap is much better, but we can't do it, unfortunately.
So into these next few corners we go then through Maggots and Beckett's, and you can see there this difference in grip that we've already touched upon, with then Sasso really being able to bite into the tarmac there as they go through the corners. A lot more mechanical grip available to them, and so now even though they both have DRS, he's able to cruise up to the back of GB68 up the inside, and that then is the move made there. It's not the only move being done by a McLaren this lap though, as Tiamat Marduk has been able to make their way by Infratic as well. The Red Bull driver looking at the back of that McLaren now. It's one of the very few times this year you'll ever hear that in the context of Formula 1, but there we go. And so now then they go through the final corner. Ben already driving away.
Yeah, as he should. We know the pace difference between Chequered and Emphatic. It's not massive, but there is a pace difference. Chequered, with the experience that he has on the F1 games over all the years that he's been creating content, and he's been doing races against the AI, online, everything. He's just got a massive advantage there in terms of experience and pace. So no surprise there for Emphatic. It's going to be important to stay with him as Chequered should close in on GB68 slowly but surely. He is almost within a second, not quite just yet, but he's going to get there in due time. And for Emphatic, he has to stay close if he wants to put himself in a good position.
Absolutely, they will need to do just that indeed. Now, we're having a look at the moment at Hayden Gullis, just on that fringe of the top 10 then, and able to get themselves that a little bit close, that a little bit better to what we're seeing here then, compared to the other drivers around them. They just need to make sure they can keep the grip up in these areas of high load here in the circuit, because then otherwise we're going to end up having what's just happened there. The car ahead of them, Emphatic, has been able to bolt away despite the fact they're on those hards versus the mediums, of course, and then it's only through DRS that they're able to still keep reasonably close to them. In terms of this then, let's take a look at the timing gap right now live between Hayden Gullis and Liam behind them. You can see how it fluctuates from one corner to another. And as it is then, it's now just a tenth and a bit between them as they go down towards the start-finish straight and onto the corner, down Hamilton straight, into turn number 1 they go. Liam at the inside on Hayden Gullis. Brilliant move there from the Haas driver. And now they have to focus on trying to catch up to Emphatic ahead of them. Meanwhile, in terms of that gap there, let's take a look in terms of those lap times. So the last lap, you can see there where the difference was made, with Gullis being a whole tenth and a half slower than what Liam was able to manage. That's then given them that great exit out the final turn, and then they've been able to get themselves up that way there. So that's things as they are right now. Tom has just been able to make a move after being 20th at the start. They've now managed to make their way up to 12th place here. Great bit of recovery from them after the timing tower at least said that they were as far down as 20th at the first corner. And so, yeah, great bit of driving using these soft tyres to their advantage and to their absolute best. And as they start to go through Stowe Corner, then you can see behind that Dirk Chocolate does not like driving in that dirty air. Clearly went very, very wide at Copse Corner. And so as they start to go through Maggots and Beckett's, then Tom has just a little bit of pressure eased off of them from the fight behind, and now they can focus much more on this one ahead of them. On board with the Alpine we go as they get closer and closer to the back of Hayden Gullis. But with both cars having DRS, it's not much difference in terms of the overall speed between the two cars. And as they head through Stowe then, this is going to need to be an almighty send, I think, from the Alpine if they are in fact going to do it here, but they don't. Instead, they stick him behind for the time being. Meanwhile, a bit further up the order, P4 is currently occupied by Zhou Guanyu, and they are currently closing down on that guy Vince. It's exactly as you were saying earlier on, Badger. They just wanted to get by all those hard tyre runners nice and quickly so then they could actually go and compete with those on a similar strategy to them.
Yeah, that is the number one consideration, which is why usually you see the further up the front someone starts, the softer the tyre they should choose, which is why I was questioning the soft choices from Tom and Matty D13 as they were starting in P9 and 15 respectively, so quite far down the order. But yeah, you got to get past the hard runners because these tyres at the start of the race are 0.6 a lap quicker than the hard tyres. So you have to make the most of them. And not just Joe is past the hard runners of Bushy and GB, but Safso as well. He's now in P5, so Bushy has been dropping a little bit, but the hard tyres will come into play at some point later on, as you might be able to avoid one extra pit stop. We're going to have to wait and see how the weather develops, but there are certainly opportunities for the hard runners later on. Also, don't forget, this is the Creator Series. At the end of the day, there will be safety cars.
There we go. So that then is what we anticipate happening then. Plenty of safety cars to shake up the order here. We've got 52 laps in this British Grand Prix, and of course we're only on lap 6 now, with Jorik van Heffen just crossing the start-finish line and setting a new fastest lap of the race. So there we go then, and we have the question in the chat. Did we just say Zhou Guanyu? Yes, we did! Zhou Guanyu is this driver here, Shanghai Tiger, who is currently at the wheel of their Alfa Romeo that they use in the real world, of course, or did do last year.
Yellow flag.
And yellow flags now. Whereabouts are those yellows?
In the final corner. He has to be a bit careful not to rejoin Okay, everything fine. Because Hoodie Pete was coming, and you don't want a collision in the final corner there. But everything fine, and it seems like there is no damage to the AlphaTauri of Swave, so he can continue. But obviously, plenty of time loss.
Absolutely. Now we're just taking a look at our battle for the lead here as they go down into Cop's corner. The gap between the two of them has opened up quite significantly. There must have been a big mistake from Meraki because headed out of the Brooklyn section of the circuit, they were only about 9/10 back. Now they've lost an entire second before we get to the end. Oh no, now it's come back down again.
Yeah, it's just fluctuating because it's SimHub. They are somewhat unreliable, unfortunately.
Well.
I wish there was a way to fix them, but the gap has opened up a little bit. In the middle sector, we're talking about 5.5 tenths that Van Heffen has actually gained on Meraki in just the middle sector alone. 1.5 in the first two. Double purple for Van Heffen as he could go for another purple lap here and does. A 31.5. His previous one was a 32 flat. And he gained another 3/10 in the final sector. So Van Heffen really showing how quick he is. Absolutely incredible driving right now, and yeah, I think he's gonna be the driver to beat here today. But one thing I've noticed was Joe. Just went on board with him, and he had a massive moment on the exit of turn 3, on the exit of Village, and quartered, thankfully. But yeah, he's struggling, I think, a bit in the dirty air of that guy Vince. They seem to be quite evenly matched on pace, always around 6-7 tenths of a second between the two of them. Never goes up too much, never goes down too much, and very, very evenly matched. So I think this is a very familiar situation here for Zhou Guanyu, as F1 drivers find themselves in dirty air during the race quite a bit, although normally with a stronger effect than it does have in the game, thankfully. In the game, it's not quite as pronounced. So we might potentially see an opportunity here for Zhou to overtake that guy Vince. He's a bit too far away for now. And he's not using battery either to, so he just stays behind. Well, he uses a little bit mid-straight. That's not something you would normally see from someone like an esports driver, to use a little bit of battery mid-straight just to get that acceleration up a little bit more, just to correct the lack of battery used early on. Normally the esports drivers commit to battery early on in the straight, and then once it's off until the next straight. So very interesting to give a little bit of, you know, mid-straight burst there to the car. And once again, he gets close, maybe down the Wellington straight, but again, you see how the car slides a little bit once he gets too close to that AlphaTauri, and that's the effect of the dirty air. Woo!
Big slide there for Zhou Guanyu coming through onto the Wellington straight then, and that's then just a sign of the driver really pushing the car. It's also, of course, one of these things where, you know, the cars as they are then in the game, they're not quite one-to-one like the real world, so any real-world driving tactics he might be using, having driven that car all of last year, may not necessarily work. You know, you tend to find that in this game, the rear end is a little bit more likely to break away than in the real world and things like that. So, you know, all these things they've got to get used to as things change. Meanwhile, a bit further down the order, we've just seen a move then from Tom, getting by Liam, and now might even get by Ben Daly as well. Down in towards Mangas and Beggars they go then. Tom's soft tyres still doing reasonably well at this stage, giving them good grip, certainly relative to those on hard tyres. That being Ben Daly just in front, of course. And now then, onto the hanger straight we go. This surely should be easy. Up the inside goes the Alpine, rockets on past the McLaren, and now then as they come up to the next corner, it might be that Liam also fancies a move as well on Ben Daly here. Has a look to the inside, but doesn't end up going for it in the end, so that's that there. And now as they come down in towards Vale and Club, then it is the last couple of corners on this circuit to finish off their 8th lap in this race. And so now then, as they get that power on and get driving out of the corner, it looks like things are relatively safe for the time being. Back to that action up towards the top end of the field, of course, still very, very small timing gaps between all of these cars here. And you have to wonder what the thing is that Zhou Guanyu is missing at this point. What is it that they need to just be able to haul that little bit closer up to the back of Vince and then make their way past? That is the real question. DRS is open once again on the Wellington straight, but it's not a particularly long straight. And so with DRS having a bit of a lesser effect with these cars due to the shape and geometry of the rear wing, that's then where it just ends up being a bit more difficult to actually catch up to a driver in front, especially given so many drivers run such low downforce setups, particularly even around a circuit like Silverstone, that it means that then the DRS effect is further lessened because there's less drag you're getting rid of in the first place. So there we are then, and so GB68 is another driver relatively close to the back of somebody else, close to the back of Bushy Ants at this stage, but realistically, apart from Liam down here in 10th place, everybody else is having a bit more of their own race, really. All the gaps are relatively close amongst that group from 3rd to 5th. You could even say from 3rd to 6th, in fact, but it doesn't seem as though anybody's really able to make anything happen. What's the noise?
Joe has spun and has been collected by, I think that is Safso. There is damage at the very least to Safso's car, front wing completely off.
Whoa, look at that!
Speeding into the pit lane. That's a 5-second penalty.
That is a 5-second time penalty, but it was worth the effort, I think, just to be able to go for the move anyway. Let's watch and see what the time in the pit lane is in total then for Zhou Guanyu, and then it should give us some idea as to what everybody else is then going to experience as well. Of course, this is going to be a bit of a longer stop because I suspect that there's going to be damage on this car as well. So into the box they come then, and no damage at all. In fact, as it is, it's just a stop straight onto the hard tyre. 2.2 second stop, not bad at all from the Alfa Romeo crew. And as they come down towards the exit then, this is going to be over 30 seconds worth of time loss here. One of the slowest pit lanes in Formula 1, of course, here at Silverstone. And as they come out then, 37.4 seconds in the pit lane. Oh, and he gets on the power and almost does what we saw Swave do in qualifying. Almost puts in the wall and spins round. Oh dear, resets the track almost immediately. But this is not the most glamorous of exits of the pit lane that I've ever seen from this particular driver. And so, well, it's maybe a good thing that it's happening here in the virtual world instead of the real one. But there we go. So they're out of the pits then. So too is Safso. Safso also having to really gather up the rear end there, trying to make it all work. And Matty is also coming to the pits at the same sort of a time. And they've just completely fallen down the order. So, as it is then, relatively small timing gaps then from 5th to 4th. GB68 still hunting on after Bushy Ants. They're both on the hard tyres, of course, so both are going to be at relatively equal levels of grip as we get a brief yellow, then back to green again. And so things are then looking relatively spicy here. But now, look at this then.
Swave is off.
Swave is off, dear oh dear. Well, at the back of the fields there.
After just one lap on hards.
Well, there we go then.
Again.
So we've got then this fight going on here. We've got Liam fighting with Tiamat Marduk. Through the first corner they come then. And it's one of these things where these guys just need to keep on pushing on, try and find their way through, because Silverstone, whilst it does create some great racing in the real world, in this game, it tends to be that once things find their order, things are then very difficult to actually start to upset, unless a driver really makes a mistake towards the end of their tyre life stint. That's then really what we end up seeing here. We just have these big trains following each other around, and not a huge amount of overtaking going on. Now, if we were to get, say, changeable conditions, which it doesn't look like we're likely to get at all over the next hour, at least, then that's that's something which we are going to be dealing with for the rest of the race. Yeah. So according to our weather graphic, you can see there over the next 30 minutes, there's a 19% chance of overcast. Yep. Never mind rain.
Yep. Over the next 30 minutes, that would be correct. But over the next hour, that is most likely going to be some rain, just not over the next 30 minutes.
Well, it also said on the graphic there that 60 minutes time, it was just 9% chance of overcast.
Yes, but there's time in between, a half hour in between, and I can see the 45-minute forecast. And I'm not going to give any spoilers, but it's a bit less dry, let's just say, than 19 and 8. But the percentage is much higher, let's just say.
I can't help but feel as though that is something of a spoiler, if I'm honest with you. But there we go.
A little bit. Just a little bit.
Right, anyway. So they go through the first corner once again then. Liam still chasing after Ben Daly. Ben is putting up a very good defense here on those hard tyres, and it's, as you mentioned earlier on, Badger, these tyres will go some distance. I mean, we can see that even just with the driver currently in 6th place. We've got Tom here on board with the Alpine, started on those soft tyres, has run them for 13 laps now, and ultimately they still seem to be going reasonably well. They've got Ben Daly within their DRS, of course, but that gap is not absolutely minute. There was no chance of being overtaken there into Brooklands, and I would wager it's probably going to be the same thing down in towards Stowe at the end of the Hangar Straight, if in fact we do end up getting there with no problems for the Alpine driver. So we'll keep an eye on that one and just and wait and see. But again, yeah, it looks like everybody's kind of just settling into their rhythm, really, and not really showing too much challenge at all, really, in terms of their overall fight here. It doesn't look as though people are really settled enough to make a move on somebody else here, as Bushiance is still fluctuating around that half second to a second gap to that guy Vince. GB68 still hovering around 3/4 of a second, and then everybody else as well. You can see there the only close gaps are between Liam, Ben Daly, and Emphatic and Liam as well. I say all that, Racing Chai just manages to make a move there with DRS open. The Alpine gets up and ahead of Hayden Gullis into Stowe corner. And so Gullis might want to think about fighting back now, but it's not going to end up happening ultimately.
Yeah, meanwhile, Tom in P6 is on 13 lap old softs right now, and they last up to 16. I would suspect, however, that he started on used soft tires, as he was in... oh no, he was not in Q3. My bad. No, he must have started on new ones then. But still, these tires should be around the 60% mark at this point, and they will not go much longer. So I would expect Tom to pit rather soon. The problem is, if Tom pits anytime soon, he'd be quite close to Hoodie Pete in P16 right now. In fact, he would be slightly behind Hoodie Pete, or right around where Hoodie Pete is right now. So it's a bit of traffic that you want to avoid, but at the same time, Tom's lap times, they're still okay. He's 33.1 on the last lap. He gained 1.1 seconds on Hoodie Pete. So there is an opportunity here for him to just stay out 1 or 2 more laps, and he could clear that traffic and make sure that he's got quite a bit of clean air. Because after Hoodie Pete, you see the gap there. It's 10 seconds between Hoodie Pete and Carbon Shadow right now. So massive gap there. Once you are clear of the Aston Martin, you basically have no traffic to worry about.
Speaking of clear, sorry to cut across you there, but we've got then Ben Daly up the inside, gets that move done nice and easily on Tom, and as predicted, Tom goes into the pit lane. So away goes the Alpine, and that then means that, and it's a time penalty for them as well. Speeding into the pit lane, 5 seconds. Dear oh dear, when are we expecting the medium and hard runners to box? Well, that's a question for Badger. Badger, when would we expect those?
That's a very good question.
Under normal circumstances. Under normal circumstances.
I don't think we'll get to that point because we will have one safety car until then. But if there's no safety cars, for the hard runners, I would assume once we get to the rain. I think they can go all the way to the rain. For the medium runners, it's a tricky one. I think it's probably best if they go medium to soft, then to the rain, and then to medium again to close out the race. Probably the best idea to do it, as Tom re-emerges just ahead of Hoodie Pete. And that's exactly what I was talking about, but on cold tires now. So Hoodie Pete has an opportunity here to maybe get past. Is he close enough? He will have to. That makes it easier.
It
that
certainly
moment
does.
From Tom. Battery, DRS. Tom is defending with all he has, with all his might, and Hoodie Pete is just not quite there to capitalize.
No.
This is incredible right now. Once the tire's up to temperature for Tom, which they should be quite soon, he's good to go. The tire advantage and his natural pace advantage should then come into play and allow him to get away from Hoodie Pete and not have to battle and defend anymore. But right now it's still a bit trickier. The tires should be fully gripping now for him. Usually it takes about 2 sectors around most circuits, certainly here around Silverstone. Once you get to Maggotts Beckett's Chapel, tires are fully gripped, and you can see Tom just completely driving away here. 7 tenths, 8 tenths the gap, closing in a little bit, but for the most part looking very good. So yeah, at this point Tom has clear air, and has no one in front of him to look at. So just keep on pushing, and this is where you have to settle into a rhythm. But yeah, for hard runners, you wait until the rain. For medium runners, I mean, the latest would be around lap 30, but you probably want to go a tad bit earlier, maybe lap 25 for the mediums, 26, literally the halfway point. And personally, I'd probably go to softs at that point, until then the rain hits.
So there we are then. So Bushy Ants we're watching at the moment, going through Magnus and Beckett's now, and it looks as though the crossover point maybe has come for the medium tyres, because at this stage Bushy is looking closer than they have done all race long to the back of that guy Vince. And now, as they have the DRS open and start to power down towards Stoke Corner, they're again just not quite close enough to make it happen. And so this then is proving to be a bit of a trickier thing for them, because all the way through this lap they've been able to follow along just 2 or 3 tenths behind the driver in front of them, whether it be that guy Vince or Zhou Guanyu before them. And according to eMod F1, Infratic is having leg cramps at this very moment. Well, clip it and send it into the clip book, and then the next time that we have a moment of downtime in this race, we were going to throw over to Nathan, and he's got a couple of things to show us already. So if we can get some of that, I'm sure that is going to create lots of content. But there we go then. So Bushy then, you can see, just taking different lines to the car in front. That guy Vince really struggling getting back onto traction there. The back end stepping out all the time. I'd imagine this is going to be the opportunity come knocking for Bushy Ants. Now then, they're going to have a look to the inside perhaps. No, they keep on following. Still no opportunity for these cars to draw alongside one another, and these are supposed to be the cars that are supposed to follow each other easier in Formula 1 with these new regulations. But as it is then, Swave has now finally left the session. Unfortunately for them, Hoodie Pete has decided to go into the pits. Tom has unsurprisingly set the new fastest lap of the race, given the speed of that particular driver and car underneath them, and of course those fresh tyres. Now then, as they start to head through Copse Corner down towards Mackers and Beckett's, let's just see then whether we end up having any sort of fight here that's worth watching between Bushy Ants and that guy Vince. Bushy seems to take the corners much more tightly than Vince does, but Vince is able to keep up this minimum speed here. Although, that being said, this time, surely this time, Vince can feel it coming. They've gone to the inside to defend. Into Stoke Corner they go then. Are they going to hang around the outside all the way? Not quite, no. Instead, Bushy Ants is now... No, they aren't. They're just ahead. Down in towards the next corner. We're being given rubbish cameras by FOM here, but as it is, we can now see from the front wing of that guy Vince that, yes, Bushy Ants is ahead and has made up that place there. But not only that, but GB6 is now having a look at the back of the car in front. And so as they continue to go through these corners, then these medium tyres have clearly had their best. They're not quite at the stage of dying just yet, but they are going to end up having themselves in a, in a bit of a situation there. So, through onto the Wellington Straight we go then. DRS open once again, but it does just look as though they're going to be too far back to try and fight anything here. And through the next few corners we go. Things are relatively sedate right now. I tell you what, we will keep this action up in the bottom right of your screen. However, we are now going to go over to our clip book and to Nathan. Nathan, talk us through some of the things you have been seeing over the course of this race.
So we've got 2 clips. The first one, this is Tom on his start, having that incident down at turn 1. As you can see, like to go great start actually from Tom. If you can see now, perfect start. I think he got about 4 positions there. Swave, big slide on the start, then he gets through to P11, through to here, about 4 people go off. I think it was Joe, one of the first to go off. Then Tom hitting the back of, I believe it was one of the Alpines or the Williams, and spinning himself around. There's nothing you can really do to avoid that. When there's 5 cars going off ahead, you try and at least just try and keep it on track. You know, it's no fault of Tom's at all. And then the second one, we have an incident. This is what happened with Safso and Zhou Guanyu. This is down at Stowe corner. You can see Zhou gaining a lot on Vince. This will be down into Stowe. Shoots up the inside, goes for the outside, up the inside, hits Vince going too wide. Then Safso ends up just collecting Zhou. Complete front wing break there as we come through. Then Zhou wants to get the move into the pit lane, overshoots it completely, and gets the 5-second penalty. And Safso obviously being able to stop the car just in time. So yeah, big shame for Zhou, obviously getting that penalty as well after coming out the pit. So definitely not the start he would have wanted to the race.
Absolutely not, no. Thank you very much once again for the brilliant coverage that we get from the clip book and from Nathan over there. And so now then, we take a look back at the action, or the lack thereof, I suppose you could say, because it is still very much as you were. Let's take a look at the age of these tyres, and you can see that for the majority of the field, they're still on those tyres that they started the race on, with the exception then of Matti, Savso, then Zhou Guanyu themselves, and then for... of course, those down towards the back end of the grid as well. Now, ultimately, I mean, Badger, we've commentated on a few of these races together now, and as you've alluded to, we usually have a safety car at this point. We've not had a safety car, and ultimately, that tends to come from this wheel-to-wheel battling when people are making mistakes, when contact is made, and all these other bits and pieces. But, I mean, given the drivers are struggling to get into that fighting, combative position, could it actually be that we maybe don't have a safety car for a little while?
Could very well be. Right now, the drivers seem very settled in. They understand that battling generally is not the way to go unless there is something with their strategy where they need to have that sense of urgency about them. And currently, nobody who does have that is anywhere close to anyone else to potentially try and overtake. So, right now it's a little bit quiet, but I think the medium runners are starting to monitor the situation with the rain, as well as with the potential pit rejoin position, when they can pit, when it makes sense. And I think there's a lot going on right now for the drivers to look at, as Infratic and Razinchai are actually battling. We have at least a little bit going on. Infratic goes past the Alpine of Razinchai and into P8. So there's a move there, and now we'll see. There's a 3-second time penalty for Zhou Guanyu. He's already on 11. He can serve 5 of them during his next pit stop, but the hard tires have not been treating him all too well. And Safso ahead of him is quicker than him, as Safso is now closing in on Carbon Shadow. That might be our next battle here going on. But you're looking at strategy right now, and for the medium runners, it's getting a bit tricky out there. 20 laps, 21st lap that they're starting now. Oh, and I can tell you, for the leader, Van Heffen, we're talking about almost 60% tire wear already. You don't want to take them past 70. So, about 5 more laps maybe, at best.
And up the inside there goes... that's where Safso makes the move. Sorry to let you to just jump across it there, but just going to mention that you can see from the graphic here that Shadow then 1.7 seconds slower than Safso on the previous lap. I wonder what it's going to be this time around. 2.1 seconds slower. That's the difference between those brand new fresh tyres on Safso's car versus the much older and harder, of course, tyres on Carbon Shadow. So that's the difference there. I suspect that the next battle we're going to end up seeing, which will be a relatively easy cakewalk for the driver concerned, will be, of course, for poor old Ilke getting overtaken by Tom in the not too distant future, because that Alpine is going at a rate of knots right now.
The difference between those two cars is about 1.4, 1.5 seconds on the last lap. So I'll give it about 5 laps and then we're there. But by that time, Ilkay might already pit, so wouldn't be surprised if that comes to fruition. Can't see the tyre wear, unfortunately, for Ilkay. But that's I think a lot of drivers on the mediums are going to pit soon. Van Heffen and Meraki have stayed out. It's really crucial for the medium runners now to extend as long as they can. Simply because if they don't, then soft tires wouldn't make it to the rain. If you bring up your little rain overlay right now, I think you're going to notice something on the 30-minute forecast.
Wow. There we go. I thought we were agreeing no spoilers.
You've brought it up a couple times before when it didn't show anything, so I thought, this time, why not bring it up again at this time it will show, actually. So roughly 30 minutes until the rain. Now, if you do a quick calculation in your head, we have about lap times of 1 minute and 30. Let's round it. Let's make it a bit quicker than it is. 1 minute and 30. Fastest lap right now, 31.4. We have 30 minutes left. That's about 20 laps. Well, you have to last 20 laps, roughly, at most, until the rain hits. Maybe a little bit less. So let's say maybe 18, 17, maybe 16. Well, the soft tires last, as we saw from the first stint with Tom, about 13, 14 laps. So you can't pit just yet, because you have to get a couple of more laps into the tires, then go soft, and then you'll be able to make it, which means the hard runners will actually struggle a bit as that guy Vince is into the pits. Oh, that's a bit too early, I reckon. What tire does he go for, though? If he goes for hards, it would work.
It's an interesting one. I'm just trying to jump to them now. There we go. So we've got that guy Vince in the pit lane. Medium tires going onto that car. What do you reckon?
That robs him of an incredible amount of strategic flexibility for the latter parts of the race, because he doesn't have another set of mediums. He only has hards and softs available. Any safety car later on after the rain hits, and he's basically toast.
Dear oh dear, and as he comes out of the pit lane as well, he may be toast just now, because Tom in the Alpine goes rocketing around his outside, up the inside into the next corner, and that then has been a masterclass in overtaking a car that just come out the pits with your brand new nice and warm tyres there for Tom. So in the Alpine they get that DRS open as well for good measure and go tearing down the Wellington straight into Brooklands, and a great move from them there to go hanging it all the way around the outside of that guy Vince. Now for Vince, are they going to now be looking at Tom thinking, oh no, they're going to be able to stay ahead of me when the rain comes? And do you think that given that the rain is coming in that sort of half an hour period, but earlier on when we were looking at it was half an hour and an hour on the screen, they were both overcast charts, is the rain even going to be here long enough, do you reckon, to actually provoke people to go into the pits and go for those intermediate tyres?
Yeah, for sure. I do think the rain is going to last long enough, because it doesn't take much for the dry tires to lose 10 seconds a lap and more in sort of rainy conditions, at which point just 3 laps of that kind of rain persisting would be enough to warrant a pit stop. Or, well, actually, it would be 5 laps, I guess. Because if you stay out, to be fair, no, it will probably be 4 ultimately, 3 or 4. But it will last long enough for sure. There will be enough rain to go around for the drivers to warrant a pit stop to intermediates. But it's not going to be a long time. I'll say that too. It's not going to be a super long time. So it's a very weird race. It's almost like in IndyCar. You know, or I don't think in IndyCar, NASCAR, how NASCAR has competition cautions, or at least used to have, where you tell the drivers beforehand, oh, we're going to have a full safety car, a caution, by lap 30 or so, or 35 or whatever. So everyone knows, and then everyone just drives to there, and then they pit, and then they, you know, it's basically, it splits the race in two, and that's what we're having here with that rain. You know, you have sort of a dry race that goes to the rain, then you have just 4 or 5 laps, maybe 7, 8 laps. I don't know how many it's actually going to be, but you have a limited amount of laps on inters, and then you're going back to a second race. As that guy Vince now prepares the move on Tom, he wants that position back into Stowe, down the inside, and that is a position taken there from Tom. Very, very good overtake right there. From that guy Vince on Tom, and back into P12 he goes, and that is important, one for track position as you mentioned, but also that guy Vince has a little bit of a pace advantage with 8 laps pressure medium tires, so he wants to make the most of that.
Certainly does, and confirmation there of the fastest lap. I was about to say, just whilst you were on mic there, that we've got 2 drivers where it claimed they had the fastest lap. We had GB68 and Europe Van Heffen, both with fastest lap next to them in the timing tower, but it's a good thing now that that guy Vince has been able to reclaim that, and now we have very much just the one driver with the fastest lap instead. So there we go then. So, as we watch them continue to pound on then and try and get those laps under their belt.
Oh, leader's in!
We've got then Europe Van Heffen into the pits then, apparently. So let's watch as the Alfa Romeo driver comes on down, and let's also see whether or not those chasing him are going to do likewise. No, Meraki stays out, decides to go a bit longer. Of course, Bushy Ants and GB68 will both go a bit longer as well. So too will Ben Daly, because they're on those hard tyres. But then for Europe Van Heffen, well, let's see if they're able to get this Alfa Romeo all serviced in good time here with a bunch of frozen Williams mechanics, and it's another set of medium tyres. Ooh.
Yeah, I'm not sure about this one. I would have gone for the soft tyre here I think you can just stretch the soft tire long enough. Again, you're robbing yourself. If you go medium here to start the race.
Oh, look at this!
robbing-
Sorry, just side by side, there's pushing and barging and all sorts going on between Dirk Chocolate and Hayden Gullis, and all of that has meant that Dirk Chocolate, who's been sat behind the Mercedes for lap after lap after lap, hoping to find a way by, has muscled his way by instead. Let's just stick with this, because it looks like Hayden's going to have another go here. It looks like these two have taken it personally. Around the outside goes Gullis. Brilliant bit of driving here between the two of them, and now as they come through up towards the Wellington Straight, who's going to have the DRS? Have they been playing games with one another to make sure that one of them gets it? Gullis has. Gullis let off the throttle there, let him slow down and let Dirk Chocolate through, and now then, side by side, the pair banging wheels as they go into the next corner. Side by side, and now then into Brooklands. It is very much Gullis back ahead, but for how much longer? Those medium tyres desperately are crying out for no more, and clearly from what we've seen for other medium tyre runners in this field, there's clearly a desire to get those tyres off of the car at the moment. But as we go through the next few corners then, let's just wait and see as to whether Dirk has got anything in response here in that Red Bull.
Yeah, meanwhile, Verheffen on Liam here into Stowe, another overtake. That one is on different strategies, but still important one. Liam now into the pits as well. He has had enough of these tires, and he is going on to a different set. Meraki has stayed out. I can tell you right now, Meraki is firmly in puncture territory with his tires now. He is risking it all to just last long enough, not quite until the rain hits, but at least to get onto softs. I think he'd do well to pit for softs right around now. If I look at where he would re-emerge, he would be pretty much in a good position to emerge back onto the track. Yeah, without any big traffic, ahead of Gullis and Dirk Chocolate, behind Infratic with a good gap for clear air.
So there we go then. As we keep on watching with Meraki then, they are saying they are still just continuing to plod round and put those laps on the tyres, and as you say then, it's leaving them a little bit of a sitting duck. I would imagine here that we're likely to see a change in the lead as Bushy Ants gets closer and closer, is gaining at a good rate of knots here, but as we say all that, they then end up going into this next corner and just not being able to get themselves past. Matty now has the fastest lap of the race with those brand new tyres on their car, and everybody is seemingly just trying to keep on going on and on and on here. 1:30.7 is the new fastest lap of this race that Matty has put out there, and so now then as they come through the final turn onto the Hamilton Straight, it looks like Bushy is feeling racy at this point in time. They are still following on with just a couple of car lengths the gap between the two of them. It's not going to happen into this corner, I'd imagine, but possibly down the Wellington Straight. It looks like they're that much closer, and they've got a good amount of grip in those hard tyres, certainly relatively speaking to those mediums on Meraki's car. And so now then, as they go through the corner, Meraki is a bit wide of the apex there. Jorik van Heffen sets a new fastest lap of this race with 1:29.8, so our first lap time in the 20s, and at the inside for the race lead goes Bushy Ants, gets that Mercedes up and past, and one of our multiple race winners this season once again puts one hand on the winning trophy.
Yeah, very good overtake there down the inside. It made easy with DRS, but you got to pull it off as well, and Bushy Ants did so, stayed close to Meraki, and then the tyre advantage that the hards now have over the mediums is so crucial. Meraki will have DRS though, but I think he might still be under pressure despite having DRS from GB68. I think there might be an overtake here. Is Meraki going to fight it? He is. A little bit of slipstream. Is it going to be enough for GB? He's trying. He's going up the inside, sending it, and that is the position taken. The tyres are completely shot, and finally Meraki is in front left tyre. I can now disclose 78% worn.
Oof.
70% is when the puncture territory starts, although it's very unlikely to happen at 70%. The probability increases the further you go. So he felt like that was enough now, and I think he's going soft.
Well, we'll wait and see.
It's going hard.
It's a set of hard tyres for Meraki. Well,
what?
I mean, it's an interesting choice. It's at this stage. I mean, obviously, if you know that the rain is coming, why not just try and go for those softs, as you were thinking, as you were saying, to then make sure that you get yourself into that window as quickly as you possibly can. Maybe they are thinking along those lines that, well, maybe it's not going to stick around for too long, and so maybe then I can just muscle it out on the hards. If they're fresh enough, then maybe they'll keep their temperature enough for me to be able to keep a decent amount of speed, and then I save on a whole pit stop. That might be where they're thinking is at, but whether or not it's going to end up going that way, I have a strong suspicion it won't go that way for them.
Yeah, that's a very good suspicion. Meanwhile, Van Heffen and Tjemmet going into Kops side by side. Thankfully, no 51G incident right there, but Van Heffen ahead of Tjemmet. And here's the thing, with the tire difference, Van Heffen doesn't mind Tjemmet getting the DRS, because through Megan Speckett's Chapel, he already got so much time, 6/10 in just 4 corners. That is incredible that he just has enough of a gap now to not have to worry about Tjemmet in DRS right now, and the gap will only increase from here. The hard runners will continue on though until the rain hits. That is pretty much guaranteed, and I can also tell you right now that Tjemmet has underfueled a bit as far as I can see by 1 lap. He's a little bit short on the fuel, so he's gonna have to hope for a safety car if he wants to bring that back. Although the rain should help. Usually the car does use less fuel in rainy conditions, so that should help him a little bit, as the gap is now over a second. But at the detection point it wasn't, so Tjemmet still with a little bit of DRS here, a little bit of help to stay close as Van Heffen goes on his merry way. And yeah, it's incredible choices here. Somebody in the chat, I think Dan James in the chat is saying it correctly. What Meraki is doing is going on to hards. It's not strategy, it's a strategy.
Oh dear. Strategy. Yeah. It's tragedy. There we go. And that's an expensive thing, is to hear me singing. Expensive in the hearing operations you'll need to correct your hearing after hearing such a horrible thing. But there we go then. So, on board with Tom at the moment, who's still rising their way back up the field on those medium tyres that are much, much fresher than everything else around them. And they're currently catching up to another driver on medium tyres, but tyres that they have had on since the start of this race. It's Hayden Gullis up in P10. They've lost 6 seconds to Dirk Chocolate since we saw that rough battling between the pair of them. It was giving me shades of Villeneuve versus Pironi in Dijon 70, whenever it was. If it was, in fact, those two drivers. My memory is terrible. But there we are then, and onto the hangar straight we go. This should be relatively academic for Tom here. Up to the inside goes the Alpine, and on past they go. Just meanwhile behind, we've then got Gullis is going to have to now try and fend off Safso as well, but I suspect that they're not going to have the tyres to do it. They decide to stay out. Safso goes up the inside into Club, and so that then means that that is all sorted and secure for them. So Gullis falling down the order, and the gamble not paying off for them. Let's take a look at the age of these tyres then. So yes, they're the only one on 30-lap-old mediums. Everybody else on mediums has done at most 20 laps on. That's the absolute most, and that's for Safso.
Yeah, Hayden Gullis is not going to like the way these tyres feel right now. He's actually dangerously close to a puncture now. It should happen probably within the next 2 or 3 laps, quite frankly. If not this lap even. I'm going to keep a close eye on that. But we have more going on. GB68 and Bushy battling for the lead right now, with Van Heffen closing in very quickly, a second a lap. Big steps taken by Van Heffen here to get closer and closer and closer, as the sky is starting to get a little bit darker, but it's a bit early. Liam goes past Hayden Gullis here. Does he have the puncture already? No, not yet. Oh, it's not going to be far. I can tell you that right now. It's not going to be far with the puncture. He doesn't have the telemetry on, so I can't actually see his tire wear.
I tell you what,
estimation is 80 plus.
Sorry, Badger. We just got this fight going on here between Safso and Tom right now, and initially it looked as though Safso was going to try and hang around the outside, then cut back underneath, and now then they're going side by side on the outside through Vale and now Club up the inside there. And there they make the move by Tom. And the thing that's confusing me is that Sauso, of course, is on tyres that are 4 laps older than Tom's, and Tom had a decent gap over them. All of a sudden, that was all eradicated, and Tom has fallen down the order here. So has there been a mistake? Is there damage on that Alpine? Not that I can see, certainly not from this angle, but it might be worth looking into it. Well, I don't know if you can have a look at the race director and see what Tom's lap times are looking like versus the last thing. Oh, and in the chat, they are correcting me. Whilst it's not visible, Tom has got front wing damage, apparently. So that is what has caused them the problem. But now, up at the top end of the field, we can see that GB68 is once again getting close to the back of Bushy Ants, but it's not quite come off for them this time. They are following very, very closely, though. I would imagine that it's only going to be a matter of when, rather than if, we start to get some fireworks between these two.
Yeah, I can see actually the lap times from Tom, not in the race director, but in my telemetry tool. And especially the middle sector, which obviously is very dependent on the front wing and on downforce, aerodynamic downforce in general. And he's been doing consistent 37.8, 37.9 middle sectors for most of his stint. Until lap 25 was amazing with 37.5. That was an incredible middle sector. And then lap 26, it dropped down to 38.4. So he lost half a second to his normal middle sector. So I think he's been having that front wing damage for the last 6 laps already.
Absolutely. So there we are then. And you can see now, just starting to run over the surface of the Aston Martin bodywork there, around the cockpit. Our first drips and drabs of rain. And now it's even starting to be visible from the heavens itself. And so now then, as these tyres continue to get punished, we'll see whether or not anybody is able to capitalise on the dropping temperatures before they start heading into the pits to get those intermediate tyres on. Meanwhile, let's just take a look then through Maggots and Beck as we go then, and GB just loses it in the second part of the S's section, and that then loses them all the time they'd gained up to that point. They were within just a tenth or two of Bushy Ants there, but it's then crept up to over half a second after that one mistake. And without that, I think that given what we see last lap, with them being a tenth and a half quicker than Bushy Ants, I think that may have been the opportunity.
DRS
and now
disabled.
Into the pits. DRS disabled already. Into the pits come all the drivers, and that means that Bushy Ants, GB68 both in. Jorrit van Heffen also in. Where is Tiamat Marta going to go? Are they going to decide to stay out one more lap thinking the inters are too early? Yes, they will. In they come.
This might be too early. The rain is there, but at the same time, it might be too early for intermediate tyres. Looking at the sector times, it's not that bad right now. It's still 39 seconds in the middle sector. Okay, Dirk with a 40, but Safsa 39.7, Liam 39.5. The sector times are not bad. This is a bit too early, I think. And the drivers don't know this. They see the DRS disabled, which in the past, in previous games, has always been the kind of, sign. Okay, now's the time to pit.
I tell you what, though.
It's not quite. It's not the same this year. This year, sometimes it can come earlier, sometimes it can come later. Everybody's going intermediates, and I'm not sure. We have a yellow flag. That's Matty D13 off in Beckett's. We have a Haas coming through. Let's hope they don't make contact. Nope, they're fine.
Well, we currently have, coming through Maggots and Beckett's, we've got Carbon Shadow coming through right now on the intermediate tyres. And if you had to look at their sectors versus those of the cars ahead of them, are they looking competitive on these intermediates, or is this still too soon even for them whilst they're on the circuit now with those tyres on?
Currently, they're not looking competitive. I mean, but everyone's in now, so it's really leveling the playing field. I think if anyone had gambled for like a couple of laps, maybe 2 laps longer to stay on dry tyres, they could have been doing well. But right now, everyone's on inters. This is then, and it's getting there. Slowly but surely, it's getting there over time. But right now, it's not yet there. In fact, it seems like it's almost stopped raining again. There's just a couple of drops coming down. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's very tricky conditions. I mean, the UK throwing up crazy weather. Where have we seen that before? Oh yeah, literally every year, basically.
It's every year and every day, I think it's fair to say, as well, in this country.
Really?
Yeah, I was sat by the train the other day, waiting, the train station, waiting for my train to arrive, and, in 30 seconds, it was bright sunshine, then to thunderstorm. Heavy rain, just in that time, snap. and then another 30 seconds later it was then the more sort of just light, gentle rain spittering down for the rest of that time. Just up ahead, you can see here that GB68 is currently just a little bit ahead of their teammate who is a lap down. That's Hoodie Pete, and has been pointed out by Space Ghosts in the chat that GB was held up in the pit lane by their teammate. Despite the fact their teammate is a lap down, they actually held up GB68. That's why that gap is now 4.8 seconds between them and Bushy Ants. It says 4.8. No, it says 2.8. I'm going to trust you to tell us the actual figures here, Badger, because it's not going to be accurate for here on in, is it? Let's be honest, it will figure some way out of.
It's 5 seconds.
It's 5 seconds. Well, there we go. So there we are. SimHub is a liar. That's what we've learned today. But in terms of that, then Safso currently looks very close. In fact, so close that they're going on past Liam, and now just having a look at the back of Dirk Chocolate as well. Dirk then maybe just not quite with a setup designed to go in these wet conditions, and with no DRS available, there's not going to be a very easy way of swinging by on this straight here. And as they start to then wind through the next few corners, going for a much, much tighter line there was Safso. And for Dirk, they went the much longer, wider line, but managed to keep up a good minimum speed. And now on the exit, it looks as though things are making a good performance here. They're able to push on nicely, but now as they go through Cop's Corner, Dirk very wide indeed. This is going to open the door to Safso, I think, and then there's a bit of gamesmanship going on, going this way and that. Dirk is trying to cover off any potential route through for Safso. They then go into the S's, and things are very difficult for that Red Bull to keep under control. They're wide of pretty much every single apex, and now as they go onto the hangar straight, this, I think, is going to be the opportunity. This is where Safso is going to make it happen. They go to the inside, but Dirk is not giving this one up. He closes the door. To the outside goes Safso. Tries to get back underneath him. Now tries to get under and on the inside, on the run down towards the last couple of corners now. All the way to the line. Powering all the way there. On the brakes on the outside line. Trying to hang it all the way around the outside of Dirk Chocolate. Dirk then forcing them to have as little track as they possibly can, and somehow keeps the Red Bull in front. Brilliant bit of racing there from Dirk Chocolate. Great defensive driving, and great from Safso to keep it clean as well. Down through the first corner we go then, and Dirk goes super wide. This time I think is all she wrote, and it is. This time Safso gets on by the Red Bull, and into the next corner they come then, and it's going to be side by side briefly, but Safso I think will probably show the door much in the same. No, and Dirk goes back up the inside. It's constant racing, constant back and forth between these two, and meanwhile all the while Liam is just thinking, how can I get involved in here as well? And Dirk has a big slide, and that ends his fight there, and that means he's now down to 11th, and Liam and Safso back up in front of him.
Yeah, that was the most anticlimactic finale to all of this, I think. Dirk defending so well, keeping the position, and then it was all for nothing. 2 mistakes. First running wide in turn 1, then getting a slide into turn through turn 5, and he loses both positions. So, yeah, very dissatisfying there from Dirk ultimately, and I think he's going to be mad at himself there more than anything. But yeah, meanwhile we have Van Heffen and GB68 very close to each other in P2 and P3. Gap right now 2.5 tenths between the two, 3 tenths. It's always shifting a little bit, and GB goes defensive, which now maybe enables Van Heffen to get a better exit. It's close. He's using battery, but they both are. So no opportunity there. It's so hard to overtake in the rain in general with no DRS help, and with how much battery you regain in the rain as well, that everybody can just use all the battery that they have pretty much all the time. Very tricky to make up positions, as we still, by the way, have 18 cars on the lead lap. It's quite impressive. I think it's just gone down to 17, I want to say. Nope, not yet. Beatster is still ahead of Bushy Ants with no safety cars. That is quite impressive. And we hear more about fuel from some of the drivers. I can tell you GB68 will be fine on fuel. Van Heffen is 2 laps down. He has to save at some point. Tebet Marduk is down to 0.4 below the target. So a couple more laps in the dry and he'll be okay. Razin Chai 0.3 down. Infratic 2 laps down as well. We see that in the chat, but I can confirm that. in the telemetry. Meraki 0.1.
Look at this now. Sorry to interrupt you, Badger, but round the outside, Tom is thinking about it. He's trying it this way and that on Hayden Gullis. He managed to get up the inside on the run down into Brooklands, then change to the outside, and now he goes up the inside, out onto the old start-finish straight, down towards Cop's Corner. Is he going to be able to hold it here? It looks like he can initially, but then Hayden Gullis has a much better drive through the second part of the corner, and then going all the way off the circuit as Tom. Surely he's got to give that position back after running all the way off the track like that to keep his speed up, but as it is, he goes through Magnus and Beckett and he stays ahead of Hayden Gullis for the time being. Back to you then, Badger.
Yeah, meanwhile, Ilkay calls the yellow flag in turn 5, and he is now lapped. Oh, as there goes Van Heffen. Don't know what exactly happened there. He got a massive moment there. He was right on the back of GP and then gets that moment. Now he's 2 seconds behind. And yeah, people in the chat are already catching on to the fact that obviously the Creator Series is entirely scripted, because the one time Dale isn't here, we don't get a safety car. I wonder if there's a connection.
Hey, I'm just going to put it out there. We're tempting fate here, people. We've still got 14 laps to go. There's still loads of time for a safety car. I guess you could say 12 laps, because that's, of course, the last lap that a safety car can be called. But it's one of these things. There's still plenty of time for shenanigans and shambles. Don't you worry. There's, of course, still that question as to what's going to happen when it comes to the crossover. Because, of course, it's got light rain for the next 5 minutes. You can see there on the graphic. Then we're going to go back to overcast conditions, then light cloud, and then back to sunshine as well. Now, sunshine will be in 30 minutes. Whether this race will still be going in 30 minutes is a question, but I don't imagine that it will be. Exactly, not unless we suddenly get 5 safety cars on the bounce or something like that.
Three would be enough.
Three would be enough. Well, there we go. But as it is, then we can see then it will start to dry up. And as it does so, there will be then those drivers who will want to try and chance it on the intermediates to get all the way to the end. There'll be those who then think that they can grab an advantage elsewhere. And so these are all things which are, yet to be determined and yet to be decided. But what we can certainly tell you is that Jorrit van Heffen has lost a huge amount of time to GB68, who in turn lost huge amounts of time to Bush Jans in the pit stop phase as well. And I can tell you then that also in terms of the drivers that we're seeing out there on circuit at the moment, of course, we have, of course, one who is just a little bit in recovery mode, shall we say, and that's our brand new creator who has joined us this week, and that is Zhou Guan Yu, down here in 12th place at the moment. They're currently on the back of Dirk Chocolate, so Dirk, try not to bottle it, try not to crash into the Formula 1 driver. I noticed a message in the chat earlier on saying the obligatory contractual great driving from Dirk comment had been made. You're absolutely right, and now it's terrible defense by Dirk, because up the inside goes Zhou Guan Yu. Brilliant move there from the Formula 1 driver, and that then means Dirk absolutely washed.
I mean, the timing couldn't have been better, Daniel, could it?
I'm almost prophetic, aren't I? It's brilliant.
That should end up being a clip. If somebody in the chat wants to clip that, please do that. That was fantastic. Meanwhile, Zhou Guan Yu is back up into P11 at the very least. Trying to hunt down now Liam at the very least. I'm not sure we can catch Safso, considering how quick Safso is. And we've got a raid from Chesnoid Gaming. Thank you very much for bringing your community over here. And I've heard that there is something in the works about Chesnoid potentially joining the Creator Series grid at some point. If he's in the chat right now, maybe he can elaborate on that. But I've heard there are some rumors out there, let's say. Meanwhile, the rain is now at its maximum. 75% is what the game indicates, so this is the wettest it will ever be. From not necessarily from here, but at some point it will start to dry up. Currently these are stable conditions, intermediates, we have the rumors. We have a little bit more fire added to the flame. It's silly season for sure, but some things aren't so silly. I wonder what Chesnoid could mean by that. But back to the racing action. We've got Meraki behind Infratic right now in P6 and 7. With that guy Vince quite close as well. That could be some battling going on as well. So we have about 12 laps remaining for Bushy Jans. That is, he's about to finish lap 40 of 52. 12 to go. And so far, surprisingly, I've never seen this in the Creator Series, and I've commentated almost all of the races from the very beginning. no safety cars. I'm quite confused.
I mean, it's it's one of these things. We get a bit of variety every now and then, and sometimes we just have a good, clean race, and apparently that's what we're getting today, like it or not. So as it is, then we've got all but one driver still in this race. Of course, Swave, we lost a bit earlier on after some mistakes from their part. It was a bad qualifying for them as well, of course, and so they retired in the pit lane, I believe, earlier on. So not too much in the way of celebrations happening over there. But as it is then, we've got P3. That fight is still on between P3 and P2, with Van Heffen having been able to get that Alfa Romeo back up into contention versus GB68. But of course then, I don't know why I went very northern there all of a sudden, but this was, a great bit of battling here that's been going on, but GB68 is either gaining or losing time to Bushy Ants at the moment. The timing tower just doesn't want to tell us whether he's gaining or losing time. It's say one corner he's 3 seconds behind, another he's 6 seconds behind, so who knows, frankly. I'm sure you do, Badger, but let's just entertain the illusion for a little bit anyway. And so very close between these two guys.
Meanwhile, sorry to interrupt, here comes Meraki on Infratic around the outside of Luffield.
Ooh!
He's gonna hold it, he's gonna try to get it, but it's not quite happening. That is very, very close battling. Again, it makes it so difficult to have rain like this, makes it so difficult to potentially overtake as Infratic runs wide. He's also on 6 seconds of penalties. Meraki has 1 warning, and I don't even know what that warning is for. Could be for track limits, could be for contact. But 6 seconds of penalties for Infratic. So net position, Meraki is in P6 right now, but he has to clear Infratic on track if he wants to unleash his full potential. Down the inside at Stowe, this might be the one that does it. And he slots in front of Infratic, and that is the position, at least for now. Is Infratic going to send one here? Not quite. But Meraki leaves him the door open and then shuts it through Club. And that is the position taken from Meraki. And he can now go on his merry way. As it looks to me like the rain has started to lessen its intensity just a little bit. It's still raining, it's still dropping it down, but not quite as much as it used to, I think. So could this be the start of the crossover potentially, or do we have to wait a couple of more laps?
Well, we will wait and see, of course. Infratic then has been joined now by that guy Vince as well, as they try and power on past the Red Bull driver. It was all very close between Infratic and then Meraki as well. Meraki's done a good job in recovering here, I think, it's fair to say. It was not the greatest mid-portion of the race for them, but things have then come back towards them with this rain. In terms of the gain and loss, well, we can take a look at that there. Ben Daly and Rasin Chai both up huge amounts of places here today. And then Liam also up a good number of places, up into the points now with that 10th place, if things continue as they are for them. So not too bad at all. Meanwhile, up at the podium, at the sharp end of this field, we can see then that Europe Van Heffen has been able to get themselves back within just a couple of tenths of GB68. So this is then still looking to be a good battle that's forming here. We've got 10 laps to go now, as Bushy Ants has crossed the line to start lap 43. And so that means then we've got this continuing battle here for the position behind them. But I think that for GB68, they need to really focus on what's going on ahead of them, as difficult as that's going to be, because, of course, they've got in their mirrors, and there's a proximity arrow, presumably, all around them all the time. Jorrit Van Heffen, they need to make sure that they can just keep the job focused and keep on chasing on after Bushy and try and gain that time. In terms of that, let's just take a look at those lap time differences. So, over the last lap, GB was 0.2 of a second slower. The live gap right now, you can see there, 5.2 seconds. So they need to really be able to make up a big chunk of time, really, to be able to then get any chance of winning this one.
Certainly, at this point, it's going to be tricky. There's going to have to be some risks, but at the same time, I think GB would be okay with a P2 or even a P3 as long as he's on the podium. But very important update on the weather. You can see it. There's no rain.
And not only that, but Dirk Chocolate has gone for the soft tyre.
Oh, Dirk. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, Dirk. What are you doing, Dirk?
Oh, dear. Oh, dear.
To be fair, it might just work out. I don't think it will, but it might just work out. We'll see. I think it's a little bit early. Maybe it's just okay.
Whoa! And
no,
it's not okay. It's absolutely not okay. And for poor old Dirk Chocolate, they come out in the pits. They so much as look at the throttle pedal, and the back end steps out on them. Look at them here, just trying to control this car, trying to get it to work in some way, shape, or form. And it's really not. Carbon Shadow has come into the pits behind them as well, and has done the exact same thing. And well, it looks like things are not looking good at all, and Bushy Ants, as you say, has now just come and lapped Dirk Chocolate too. So, yeah, things not looking particularly great from his perspective right now. His hope, of course, is going to be that it dries up so quickly that those softs suddenly switch on over the course of this lap, and then that loses them the least amount of time. But for everybody else in the field, they're just going to keep on going until they start to feel as though these Inters are going to start losing a bit of pace, and then they'll say, "Oh, a safety car!" I'll tell you what, then. Lap 44 of 52, we finally get a safety car in this Creator Series League race, and this then has completely flipped everything on its head for poor old Dirk and Carbon Shadow. They are now going to massively lose out because everybody will be able to pit under the safety car Delta and gain huge amounts of time in the pit lane as a result, and that then means they will be much further down the order than they would have hoped for in this one. Now, the question is...
Everyone will pit immediately now. Everyone will pit immediately. Tom is in. We have probably Matty D13 in. Yep. Bushy Ants is going to come into the pits because this is close to the crossover. So everyone felt that it was going to be time, and everyone's going to come in. Almost everyone, except for some lapped cars who might just stay out to unlap themselves easier and then come in for maybe some fresher soft tires as well. Top 3 in. Tiamat Marduk bailed out in terms of fuel. He's not the only one. Van Heffen is still a lap down on fuel, but that should fix itself over the course of the safety car period. Tiamat Marduk in. Razin Chai going to be in. Honestly, I don't need to go through all the names. Everybody is going to be in the pits now for soft tires as Razin Chai goes for an overtake on pit entry. And there's a Ferrari with a lost front wing. That's Ilkay. What has happened there? I think the two Ferraris have come together.
I tell you what, if it has been through Rasin Chai going for the move there in the pit lane, then, I mean, there was not really much need to. It's not for position at all. Neither Ferrari is anywhere near them in the standings. And so, given that everybody's under safety car anyway, they're going to end up losing themselves time and opportunity. And that's exactly what's happened. They've picked up an extra time penalty now. And so now then, they've got an awful lot of work to do in the meantime. So, Rasin Chai about to leave the pit lane in P5, and we'll keep that P5 for the time being, and Hayden Gullis then will be the last driver to come round into the pits, owing to the fact that they are on those intermediate tyres. Everybody else behind them, now it's going to be a question as to how much time is gained and lost in the pit lane here under safety car. And there we go then, so Gullis in the pit lane. We've got now just a few seconds then worth of waiting for them, and they're going to come on round. It's going to be about that 35 seconds worth of time lost in the pit lane, but of course for those cars chasing them behind, the likes of Tom and so on, they're still not even up to the start finish line yet. Now they are, and so as they start to come past the pits, now they then come on past Hayden Gullis, but I suspect that Dirk Chocolate is not going to be able to pass him, so it would be P14 for Dirk Chocolate here. And that then is going to be a major blow to the Red Bull drivers' hopes of getting into the points here today, and it looks like their teammate as well might be under a huge amount of pressure and problems here because they have those 9 seconds worth of time penalties. Huge amount of time to then end up losing at the end of the race when everybody will be much tighter packed together.
Yeah, certainly. Meanwhile, I was watching, I think, a little bit of an Aussie misunderstanding between Beatster and Tiamat Marduk, as Tiamat Marduk wanted to let Beatster through, I think, to unlap himself, but didn't do it properly, and so had to give the position, or Beatster had to give the position back. It was all very confusing and very weird, but let's see once they close up to the safety car whether there will be any situations where Beatster will be let through. Same with Ilkay and with Hoodie Pete. Usually we have this gentleman's agreement between the drivers that any lapped cars are being let through by driving off the circuit. We'll see whether Tiamat Marduk is going to do that or not. If somebody's watching in Tiamat Marduk's chat, tell him to drive off the circuit to let Beatster through, and
tell
someone
you
tell
what.
Beatster if he's streaming that he is allowed through if a car drives off the circuit.
Absolutely, absolutely. But what we'll do then, given that we
There we go.
finally have this safety car, let's now finally throw to the man who's been the most patient person watching the Creator Series here today, and that is Nathan with our clipbook. Nathan, I'm going to have to just get you set back up again because your computer died, you told me earlier on, so bear with me. Are you able to speak at least? Are you here? Are you with us? I can't hear him.
Sounds like a no, he's not even in the... No.
Oh, he's not.
here right now.
Great. Okay, never mind then. That's we're not going to do that, as it turns out. So there you go.
Yep.
You can look at a blank screen for a moment. Interesting, Nathan. Can you tell us more? Yes, indeed. Well, thanks for that, Nathan. We'll go back to the main footage now. And in fact, let's go to this camera here. And
Drive-through penalty for Zhou Guanyu for speeding under safety car. What?
dear, oh dear, I know that it's new to him. I know that he's not done all this racing before. I know that it's a big pressure to be on such a live, huge audience as well. It'll never have been watched by this many people in his life, probably. But he can't be doing that, honestly. He can't be speeding under the safety car. Dear, oh dear, oh dear.
Daniel, stop.
Oh dear.
No, that's... I don't want to say what I usually say in these instances. Usually I call that a rookie mistake. I think if there's one driver I don't want to call a rookie.
I mean, you know, technically, during the season in which this game is set, he was a rookie. So
True,
you could
true.
say it's a rookie mistake.
He's just staying true to his AI counterpart.
Exactly.
Which is the actual rookie. He's actually pitting. You can't serve a drive-through under
Oh,
safety
dear.
car. Can someone
Has
tell him?
nobody told him? Oh dear,
No.
oh dear. Well, I'll tell you
He's
what.
going to lose a position to Tom here. Oh,
absolutely
no. He's
nothing.
losing track position and he's not going to serve his penalty either. If he's going for mediums or hards, it's going to be even worse. If he hasn't checked tyres, if he just thinks, oh, I'm serving my penalty, and then the pit menu is set to hard tyres. No, it's set to softs, thank goodness. Yeah, you can't serve a penalty under... or you can't serve that penalty, I should say, under safety car. You can serve a 5-second time penalty under safety car or VSC. You can even serve a drive-through under VSC. That is possible. You just can't serve a drive-through under full safety car. And I think that's what he was trying to do. And there goes positions lost. Not just one, but 3 actually, to Tom, to Dirk, and to Matty D13. So it's not looking too great for Zhou Guanyu today. Couple of quirks of the game that he was not aware of, I think, cost him dearly today. And that's really... It wasn't down to his driving. I think his driving was very consistent, as you would expect from a professional Formula 1 driver. It's more so due to these little things that normally, you know, someone like Zhou Guanyu has an engineer in his headset for, in his helmet for, I should say, and in his ear, who tells him what to do and as Major says, to avoid having to learn the rules, basically. And safety car in this lap with 5 remaining, as Hoodie Pete has not been able to unlap himself. Very unfortunate that, but everyone else I think has indeed. So Bushian's now in charge of the field, and we are soon going racing again.
We certainly are. We certainly are. And it's been a good safety car period, and we will. It's my favourite sort as well. Relatively short, but here we are then. Bushiance gets ready to lead us away once more. And so we have ourselves a race on, ladies and gentlemen. So round the final turn they come, and they will get onto the power. They've already been able to get a good enough launch there to keep themselves ahead of GB68. 5 laps to go. It's a 5-lap sprint here in Silverstone to determine who is going to win this British Grand Prix. Through the first few corners we go, then not too much action up at the sharp end of the field, but further back we can see then that Tiamat Marduk, Ben Daly, is now up here with the likes of Rasin Chaya and Meraki, all these drivers who did very, very well in qualifying, and Ben has now just made a couple of mistakes off of that restart. Now down towards the last few moments of Sector 1, then into the start of Sector 2. Is he going to be under threat? Not this time. And so as a result then he is safe for the time being. Looking at the other McLaren of Safso, They're having a look all over the back of Liam at the moment. Liam under huge amounts of pressure in that hat, but not any difference in terms of their positions so far. Nobody really losing or gaining anything off of this safety car restart so far, other than where they were previously. We'll take a look at this fight here for positions 4, 5, and 6, with Rasin Chai then a great leap forward they've done in this race, starting 12th, now up to 5th place, and now they're threatening the back of Timet Marduk for P4. And so as they come through onto the hangar straight, then no DRS yet. Of course, this is only their first lap after the safety car was called in. It'll be the third lap is when that will then be available once more. And so as they come down towards Stowe Corner, again, nobody's able to really make a move this time, or certainly not that we have seen anyway. And then means that for everybody else, we've got some close action going on, but no actual overtaking just yet.
4 laps remaining, and Timet Marduk is starting to fall off the top 3 here. Seems to maybe not have the pace. In fact, GB68 also falling off of Bushy Ant, who is absolutely flying right now. I think if Van Heffen wants to have a chance at winning this race, he has to get past GB rather quickly to then be in DRS of Bushy Ant. Otherwise, I think GB might just fall off here, as everyone's just draining their battery right now. So this is going to get very interesting. Will there be moves before the DRS enables within the top 6 or 7? Currently, it's not looking like it, but some drivers have to have a sense of urgency about them. Really, all of them do, in a way, with only 3.5 laps remaining at this stage, as they are going through Kopp's Corner here, and Van Heffen. GB actually getting a little bit closer to Bushy Ant. The gap is now 0.5 of a second, so it's closing in, it's getting closer, 0.4 even, so Bushy maybe just a little bit careful. ERS charge actually the same for both Bushy and GB, so both drivers trying to save a little bit of battery for the end here. For the last 3 laps, as we have a yellow flag, and that is Zhou Guanyu.
Zhou Guanyu out of the session! What an absolutely horrible end to their debut here in the Creator Series. We go on board now with Ilke, and we'll see whether we can spot, well, we'll go on board with Beatster, rather. See if we have any sight on where that happened to them. And we go through the S's of Maggers and Beckers. We're still not past them just yet. And so could it be on the exit here?
The car's gone. The car's gone now.
Car's gone. Okay.
I was looking on the map, and I think I'm not 100% sure, but I do think that it was a let's call it a frustration retirement. I think the young kids call it a rage quit over that drive-through penalty that he wasn't able to serve. And with only 3 laps remaining, now the safety car can't come out again because the leader has started the 3rd last lap. So it's too late now for a safety car, and as such, he decided to just retire the car. He's had enough with that drive-through penalty, and he is out.
So there we go then. That is that as far as their race run is concerned. We take a look now just a little bit further up the field, going through Maggots and Beckets at this moment in time. It's GB68 on the back of Bushy Ants, and of course there is DRS available at this point. And so it will open up on the back of the Aston Martin. Now, will they want to really go for it this time? Knowing that, of course, around this lap, we've seen drivers all really struggling when they've been really close to the car in front, not being able to get on by. Is it going to be a case that they go for the move as soon as possible, or are they going to put all of their eggs in one basket, and that basket being the final lap? We will wait and see. But as it is, at the end of lap 50 into lap 51, GB is no closer. Although I say that, you can see then from the timing graphic that has now popped up on your screen, Bushy Ant set a new fastest lap of the race, a 1:28.6, but then GB matched it and beat it with another 1:28.6, but this one about 0.02 of a second faster, as you can see there. So it's all very close indeed, comparing that pace to the car behind of Jorrit van Heffen, and they are behind and slower by about 0.2 of a second that previous lap. So that is the difference there, and as these guys then continue to power on through and try and get these moves made, we take a look now at Rasin Chai, threatening all over the back of Meraki at this point. Meraki has been able to make up a position on them, of course, because Rasin was behind Ben Daly originally, and now then the Williams finds himself on the fringes of the podium. With just Ben Daly in front of them, and then 1.8 seconds to catch up onto the back of Van Heffen. It's possibly unlikely at this stage that they're going to be able to make their way past, but for this late stage in the race then, as we go through Maggots and Beckets once more, we should see the DRS flipping open on the back of GB's Aston Martin once again. And this time, they're not going to be any closer. In fact, they look further away than they were last time. And, well, let's end up seeing this fight continue. Down into the third and final sector we go then. And for one final time, we will make our way through the final corners onto the last lap. Say for the last time, I mean for the second last time. So, final lap then, now in the British Grand Prix, and it is Bushy-Ants leading the way from GB68 and Jorrit van Heffen as your podium so far. Then it's Ben Daly, then Meraki, Rasin Chai, and Fratic, a new fastest lap of the race from GB68 once again, as they continue in their fight to try and get themselves past the Mercedes of Bushy-Ants. After Infratic, we've then got Liam, then Sasso, then Tom, then that guy Vince, Matty, Hayden Gullis, Dirk Chocolate, Carbon Shadow, then Beatsa, then Ilke, then Hoodie Pete, and then out of this race are Zhou Guan Yu and, of course, Swave, who we lost a huge amount of time ago, all the way back in the early part of this race. As it is then, the gap has come down between GB68 and Bushy-Ants, but it's not looking close enough just yet for them to be able to get a move done. Now, whilst there is DRS coming, they've got to navigate their way through the Magus and Beckett section just yet. They need to make sure that they can get themselves by as soon as possible here, because of course as they go through here, things are going to be very, very difficult to try and get themselves into a good spot to overtake, because all that downforce means all that dirty air, all of that running, all of that fighting. It's now going to come down to this: is there enough battery left in any of these cars? They're all flashing on the back of the cars there. Down to fourth place we go, and Ben Daly has been overtaken by Meraki just into Stowe Corner. They have to fend them off. They do so for the time being, but now up at the front of the field, we have to cut away. We have to look at this driver coming round the final turn for another time this season. Bushy-Ants claims the win, and Ben Daly is overtaken by Meraki. Not just by Meraki, but by Rasin Chai and Infratic at the line. Infratic then losing a position, so too Rasin Chai losing many positions after their penalties, which means that it is a McLaren 5-6 with Stewart Marduk and then Sasso, then Liam, then that guy Vince, then Infratic, then Tom, then Dirk Chocolate. And then it's, I don't even know where we're looking anymore, but it's all been a very complicated end to that race, with then, of course, fastest lap point going to GB68 as well for a Herculean effort on that final lap, but it was an effort that was not large enough, because you are looking at your winner here today, that being Mr. Bushy-Ants.
What a race. That was absolutely incredible. What a finish, and ultimately, we have a new championship leader, because Alex Gillen, who led the championship before today, is not here today, was not here today, was not participating today. It is Meraki who, with that overtake, not just with that overtake, but that made it clearer, is now taking the lead in the championship. He is on 144 points. I want to see really quickly. GB got the fastest lap of the race, so I'm going to take that into account real quick. But 144 points for Meraki, 139 for Alex Gillen, and 138 for Tiamat Marduk. So the top three separated by just 6 points. Bushy-Ants is getting closer as well. He's going to be on 124 now, with GB68 on 109 after his P2 and fastest lap. Van Heffen, finishing third, is on 99 points in P6 in the standings. So, Bushy-Ants once again victorious here at the British Grand Prix. The grippy one, as he calls himself, in the standings here. And he was quite grippy today. And it was a gripping race as well, I have to say. Even though the grip sometimes ran a little bit out, especially during the wet period. But enough talks about grip. What a race it was. We did get finally our safety car, thank goodness. A Create the Series race without safety car is it's just not possible, is it?
Absolutely not. So, full run of your order after that one then. Bushy-Ants takes the win in that particular race there, and then GB68 and Jorrit van Heffen finish out the podium. Then it is Meraki, Tiamat Marduk, Sapso, Liam, that guy Vince, Infratic, Tom, Dirk Chocolate, Rasin Chai, Carbon Shadow, Matty, Hayden Gullis, Beatsa, Ilke, Hoodie Pete, and then out of this race were Zhou Guan Yu and Swave. The two retirements so far today. So, with all of that then, Let's bring it on back. Let's sort of cool down. Let's enter our cool down room, and then let's look lovingly into the camera for a moment to say thank you, everybody, for watching that race. It was very nice of you to join us. We're not entirely done yet, of course. We are going to end up having some interviews with the drivers, hopefully. So we'll get that all sorted, and then I've got to run away and get prepped for going back on mic on a different thing. I'm very busy today. But there we go then. So first of all, then let's take a look and see who we've got in the interview room. Well, we have our third place driver, Mr. Jorrit van Heffen. Let's see if we can get them in then, Badger, and have a chat to them. Mr. van Heffen, how the devil are you, sir? That was perhaps not the absolute best way it could have gone for you, but and I notice his mic is muted, so I'm just going to keep on talking until I see that unmute. But there we go, there it is. Yes, obviously pole position for you there. Didn't end up quite going your way. Where do you think the race was won and lost today?
Definitely on the choice to start on the hards or the mediums today. I was hoping and thinking that this is the Creator Series, and we have safety cars in the Creator Series, you know. That truth, that was not the case today. It's Silverstone. We only had one in the end, and yeah, you know, it was decided on whether you started hards or mediums, and the people on hards just did amazing. I tried my best. My pace was so strong on the first stint, because Jake was a good reference for that. But yeah, you know, it's a very long pit lane. It's hard to get that time back. So yeah, congrats to the ones that chose hards as starting tires. And yeah, it was like quite an interesting race. You know, it was very enduring. It's super warm today in the Netherlands. No safety cars means no break, basically, so constantly on it. I think that describes this race of today.
Absolutely, and I think that, you know, it's been a great day for you. You can tell how much it meant to you because all the racing driver excuses have come out. But you know, in terms of that one, you know, qualifying was great. Obviously, it was great to see you there, and you know, you were the fastest Alfa Romeo driver of today as well. Which, given the competition in your team, that I mean, that must have felt good.
Showed them who's boss.
Absolutely, you did. Now, in terms of in the race, then obviously the main thing that you point out there was then that decision to go mediums or hards, and then whether or not that then ended up really affecting the outcome for you because of all that rain that came down. Of course, did you feel comfortable in the rain? Did it feel as though the car was behaving and you had as much pace relative to the rest of the field as in the dry, or did you more gamble on it just being dry throughout?
One thing I'm strong at is stints on either mediums or hards. That's something I'm just better at. Inters are a completely different story for me. I'm not as good on the inters, not as comfortable. I was running a dry setup as well, but I must say that it felt better than I thought it would be. And my pace was quite okay. You know, I could keep up with them. I was a little bit faster than GB, but it's super hard to overtake with the wings we were running as well. So yeah, you know, I was rather comfortable, but just not quick enough. But to be honest, GB was extremely quick as well.
No, really, not this time because into the yeah, Jorrit already went into the whole medium versus hard situation at the start, and that really is the one. Maybe like, why did you choose the mediums over the hards?
I was hoping for a safety car, but also the rain to come earlier. I thought and I remember that the tires last just unnecessarily long from last time. So that was what I was hoping for, and maybe that I could pull a gap, safety car, boom, go soft, kaboom, shablam, shablam. You know, just an interesting strategy over a boring, assuring one. Really.
Yeah, and then I do have one more question that I just remember. When you pitted, you went for mediums again. Why? the softs were a possibility at that point.
The softs lose their shine at some point, and also it was gonna go from wet to dry at the end of the race. I was not gonna have another one, but also the softs just they just lose their shine so quick. You know, they'll last long, but the mediums are just the better tire, the best, honestly. Unless it's a shootout until the end, I'd always go for mediums.
Fair enough. I would say in hindsight, wasn't exactly the worst decision. The starting one was the one that was a bit more detrimental ultimately.
Exactly.
But
You know,
podium
shit happens.
ultimately, and 15 points to your tally. You're still P6 in the championship, and you're closing in on the top a little bit.
You know, we take that. We take that.
Absolutely.
There you go. Congratulations.
As you should do. As you should do. So, thanks very much for joining us then. And hopefully, for your sake, the next time you get pole position, you'll be able to convert it a little bit easier than what was happening here today. But thanks very much for joining us. Very good indeed. We'll now hear from second place, who has finished their stream and has also raided the Creator Series, that being GB68. Let's grab them in now. GB, first of all, thank you for the raids. Crikey, we've got all sorts of raids going on now. I think this will be the largest audience we've ever had on Creator Series. This is brilliant.
Love to see it.
Absolutely, you love to see it. So thanks again to Ben and to everybody else whose name I've missed so far. But they all know who they are. They're all much bigger than all of us. So GB, in terms of that one, obviously it was perhaps not the most ideal of situations for you initially, in that you were not quite able to get onto those at the real sharp end, and then when all there was all that was going on in the pit stops and that sort of thing, being held up by your teammate who was a lap down, I understand. Someone said in the stream chat earlier on. Just talk us through the race from your perspective. You know, how well do you think it went overall versus what you could have achieved?
Honestly, I thought it went really well. But before I go into it as well, I want to obviously say a big thank you to Zhou Guan Yu for jumping in with us, which is pretty special to have a Formula One driver racing with us. We had a really good fight at the start of the race, which was great. But otherwise, it was just on the hard tires. We obviously had Bushy Ants in front of us on the hards, and I kind of knew that Meraki and Yorit would pull away at the start, and it was really just try and make sure that our pace is the same, or if not, hopefully better than Bushy Ants. Stay with them at least. And that we would have a good chance of definitely getting a podium, maybe winning the race at the end. Fortunately, that's kind of what happened. The plan was to take the hards all the way until the rain, and then go from there. So that obviously worked quite well.
I'm being told that my microphone was muted. Sorry, I'll try that all again. But yes, so you were really in the worst position as far as a fight was concerned, because, of course, you were in the middle of two other cars. You had the driver just behind you, of course, in the form of Yorit, and he was, of course, pushing really, really hard. He, of course, had huge amounts of pace because he got in the pole position and led a huge amount of the way. And then, of course, just ahead of you, there was then Bushy as well, of course, who has proven a few times this season now that they know how to win a Grand Prix in Creator Series. And so when you're sandwiched between two cars like that, what's your personal mindset going into it? Are you more focused on attack, defense? Are you just sat in the middle?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It was kind of both, different phases. So on the restart, I was a little bit slow, dropped off the pace a little bit, and saw that Yorit was, I think, 2-3 tenths behind. I also thought he might have been using a lot of ERS, so I kind of was like, well, look, as long as I place my car okay, as long as I've got track position, I thought I had the advantage with ERS. Of course, I've got no idea. And then after that, I could see, once I started using a bit of battery, I pulled a bit more of a gap on Yorit and was trying to close in on Bushy Ants, make sure we had DRS. And yeah, wait, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine.
Okay, all right.
Don't you worry, darling, we can hear you just fine. I'm enjoying it very much.
So by the end of it, I was hoping to have enough ERS to attack Bushy on the last lap, but his pace was great as well. He just had the margin. I saw him in a couple errors, small errors on the apexes through the last lap, which pulled me closer, but couldn't quite get the win. Which I said to my chat, was dying for a win today. I wanted to break the curse, but unfortunately, it's another P2.
Unfortunately, it is today, but I have a feeling with more performances like that, it's only a matter of time, surely, until you get a win.
Fingers crossed, hopefully.
Fingers crossed, hopefully. Dear, oh dear. And Badger, any questions from you for Mr. GB?
Yeah, first off, congrats on the P2.
Thank you.
Great drive. I want to know, like, what made you... It worked well, ultimately. What made you choose the hard tire in the beginning? Did you look at the rain? Did you just go, the hard tire is always a throwaway tire? Were there many considerations, or Just
I think
you played it by ear.
Yeah, again, it's a good question. I think ideally, which maybe you might have said on the broadcast, but I think depending on how late the rain would fall, if it had come a bit earlier, obviously it could have been mediums, inters, mediums. Obviously with a late safety car, it would have been soft anyway, of course, but that would have been the original strategy. But from looking at the rain at the start of the race, it looked like it was going to fall late, and I didn't think the mediums would make it. You saw with Meraki's tires falling off, obviously at the end of his medium stint, that they just didn't have a pace. And I think the aim from the start was to always not box until the rain comes. So it was to just go as long as we could, and the hard tires in the end was the right choice.
Yeah, they definitely were. 2 hard runners in 1 and 2, and then we have the first medium runners in 3 and 4 from the start of the race. So I would say the same thing. Yeah, hards were the correct choice, and got you another P2. But Bushy, what did you make of Bushy's performance? Was he unbeatable today, or do you think you could have gotten him if you had just done maybe one thing right or better, or do you think there's no shot?
I think the big moment for me was on the lap when everyone boxed for inters. I was really close to Bushy. I was probably 2-3 tenths behind him. Pace was really strong. We were obviously in the VC. I knew that my tires were better than his. I don't really know why, but I just had better tires at that point. Yeah, so I was 2-3 tenths behind, and I made a mistake going into Maggots and Beckett's, which meant I came out 5 tenths with DRS, of course. My plan was to pass him and go in for inters, but I may have bottled that. So that really, I think, otherwise, props to Bushy. He was rapid today, so yeah, no complaints really.
No complaints.
All right, fair enough. Daniel, you can take over again.
Oh, absolutely. Well, no complaints for somebody who finished P2. I feel like that's we need some more competitive mindset from you here. We could have at least one little complaint. But there we go. It shows just what an amicable gentleman you are. But there we are then. Thanks very much for joining us, GB. Hopefully next time, for your sake, you can go just the one better.
Hopefully.
Absolutely.
Cheers, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
very much. Thank you. So, next then, we will grab in our race winner, Bushy Ants. Let's see if we can have a chat to them. And here they are. Bushy, well, after that one then, it looks as though you're suddenly you're making a habit of this, shall we say. I mean, I remember all the way back during the first race that I commentated on for this series, you were saying, oh, well, no, that's not going to happen again. It's now happened, 3-4 times? Talk us through that one for you from start to finish.
I had no idea what was happening most of the time, to be honest. Started on the hards. That ended up being the right strategy. It was very close. I think if the rain had came maybe about 3 laps later, then I would have been screwed, because I was on 72 or 73% on my hards by the time we went in for the inters, and then I got lucky because GB got held up by his teammate who was a back marker at the time. And yeah, just I seem to get away from people on inters conditions, so managed to pull the gap. Safety car brought us back, and I was nervous when that safety car came out, because I was like, GB's definitely gonna have a huge chance, because I felt like the whole race we had the same pace. But luckily, I managed to keep the gap.
Okay, and in terms of keeping that gap at the end in particular, because you mentioned there you felt confident in the interconditions, and so that was there, as an opportunity for you to take it with both hands. You did, because of course there was then, of course, the as you also pointed out there, GB getting held up in the pits. But then come that safety car, everyone's compressed back together again. What was going through your head in terms of, what was your defensive strategy? What were you thinking about in terms of, how do you end up managing this at this point? Because, of course, at that late stage in a race, if there's suddenly a safety car and then there's 5 laps of racing to go, I mean, we've all experienced it. People start to drive a bit crazy when everything is suddenly on the line like that and everybody's back together again on fresh tyres. Did you think at any point that you were at risk of an errant dive bomb or something like that?
100%. The whole time. That's why, for me, my mindset was just try and manage my ERS whilst pushing as much as I can, and try and keep at least a 6 to 7 tenth gap, because that would be enough to warrant, under a DRS, to warrant any sort of sends depending on the lap. And the final lap, I thought GB might have gone for a send on the final chicane, but luckily he didn't. So yeah, managed to keep that gap.
Absolutely you did. And in terms of that, obviously, it was towards the end there, it was with that change in weather conditions first, and then after the safety car, of course, that you then took the lead and you were then able to go on. Now, in terms of up until that point, had you found that things were relatively easy managing the pace, prior to the weather coming down? If, had the weather not come down, for example, do you feel as though you could have been able to, reclaim that relatively easily and get yourself further forward?
I don't know if I would have been able to win the race entirely if it wasn't for the intersection. I think I would have had the pace on the mediums towards the end to at least get top 2. I don't know about the win, but yeah, the hards were really good up until just before it started raining, and then I was really struggling, and GB's tire wear was a lot less than mine. So he was starting to catch me up a little bit, and I thought he was going to overtake me. But again, I'd managed my ERS really well in the mid stage of the race. I think they had like 40% or something like that, and I was still in the 80s. So I had a lot that I could play around with, and that really saved me in that section there.
Excellent. Very, very good. Well, any questions then from Badger for our race winner here today?
Yeah, first off, congratulations on the win, of course. Great job, great drive. GB said there was one moment where he felt like he could have gotten you. It was right before everyone went in for inters. How threatened did you feel by GB being as close as he was for most of the race?
In that section of the race, I was almost sure that if the rain didn't come exactly when it did, then, or if at least it had taken a little bit longer to transition, then he would have gotten me. Because I couldn't keep up with his pace because he had a lot better tire wear than me at that point. I was on 70, and I think at the time he was just pushing into the 60s. So he would have definitely got me there. But otherwise, I felt as if I managed the gap fairly well for the rest of the race to him.
All right, and then same question I asked him as well, because you also started on the hard tire. Did you give it a long consideration? Did you look at the weather and say, yeah, that's going to be hards? Or did you just play it by ear and go, yeah, hard tire is usually the throwaway tire at the start anyway, so just go with that? Like, what was your consideration there to go on that time? Because it was clearly the right call.
Yeah, it was definitely the latter. For me, except for if it started in wet conditions, for me, I was always going to start on hard tires, no matter what. That was just the easiest option for me, and then, as you said, I could just play it by ear, depending on what happens.
All right, fair enough.
There we go. There we go. Nice and succinct analysis as always from Bushy. So great. Thanks for joining us, Bushy. Again, congrats on the win.
Problem.
And now looking forward to the rest of the season. Has it started to dawn on you yet that you're actually now a championship contender?
To be honest, I'm kind of surprised that I'm even close with the amount of DNFs I've had this season. It's literally I either finish in the top 2 or I don't finish.
Oh, well, I mean, as far as a record is concerned, I suppose that's not bad, as long as you're keeping up more finishes than DNFs. So, as long as you keep doing that, I'm sure you'll be fine.
Is that a compliment to me or a dab at Mr. Dale JE?
Oh, look at the time. What's it? Oh, dear. Looks like we need to...
Poor Dale. He doesn't even race. He's still catching strays.
I mean...
I'm on smoke to everybody.
At least today, as he pointed out in the chat, and no major disrespect to Hoodie Pete, maybe a tiny bit of disrespect to Hoodie Pete, but he did crash that car quicker than Dale has ever crashed the Aston Martin. So...
I beg to differ.
Oh, really?
His game crashed pretty quickly into one of the qualifyings. I mean, that counts as crashing.
Well, there we go then. There we are. So, thanks very much for joining us then, Bushy.
Thank you very much.
Now got a couple of other drivers who are waiting in the interview room very patiently. Let's get Safso in, first of all. They're the ones who are not muted or deafened, so I have a funny feeling they may be just a little bit more ready than the others. And here they are. So, Safso, talk us through that one, young man.
Not how I wanted it to go. Is probably a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Obviously, that safety car completely saved my race. Yeah, just honestly, even from like Q1 or so, things were already looking a bit iffy because I was on my first soft tyre run, and then I don't know if Beatster didn't see me or whether there was lag or something, but just put me on the grass, so I had to abandon that lap, come into the pits, and then ended up getting to Q2 on warm tyres. And then, yeah, that just maybe affected my confidence through, and then I don't know if it was on the broadcast, but the incident with Joe was just I completely guessed wrong where he was going to go. There was moments where he could have gone left, moments where he could have gone right, and I just guessed wrong.
Yeah.
And that pretty much put me in limbo for over half the race.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one of those things, though, where it was ultimately a very good recovery. Yes, a bit of luck was on your side, but luck happens to affect us all in certain ways. I mean, we're all very lucky that we get to do what we do. It's great. But ultimately, up in the end there, McLaren's 5th and 6th, so another good contribution towards your Constructors' Championships points. Did you think that maybe 6th was the best that was possible today after those incidents? Did you even think that 6th was possible after those incidents?
Before the safety car, I was pretty much certain I was going to be stuck in P9. I didn't have the pace to catch up to everyone ahead, even if I got the switch to softs right. And before Joe, I think the absolute best I would have gone was 5th or 6th, depending on how others did on their mediums towards the end. So, yeah, I think 6th, I pretty much maximized the race with or without the incidents.
Excellent. Very good. And in terms of this then, I mean, obviously you were part of these various trains that we saw starting to form as well in amongst the field. It was difficult, it seemed, to get the overtakes done. Was that the assessment inside the car as well, that it was just very difficult to overtake today, or was it something else?
Yeah, it was definitely difficult to overtake. It's like Austria, almost, in a way of just once you're in a DRS train, you both want to overtake and don't want to overtake, and then even if you do want to overtake, usually you just have to use up a ton of ERS to make sure you actually get the move done, use a ton to pull the gap, and if you aren't able to pull a full second, you have to start backpedaling and everything, you have to start using less, you have to start pushing less and everything, and then they get back past you, and it's just a whole thing. So obviously, being on the mediums, around the hards, that obviously helped. I think if I was on the hards, I would have just stayed in P7 for all of that first stint. Yeah, it is very difficult to get through in a train unless you're on better tires or you have much better straight line speed or cornering speed.
Absolutely, yeah. Badger, any questions for Safso at all?
Safso, first off, well done on the P6. One thing I want to know, obviously it didn't matter ultimately too much, but I've asked 2 or 3 of the other drivers as well, what was your process to get to the decision of starting on mediums over the hards? Was it just you felt like it, or what was going into that decision?
If it was going to be a full dry race, I would have started on the hards, but as soon as I saw when that rain was coming in, I thought, okay, if I'm going to get off dries to go on to inters, assuming it's going to be wet enough, because usually if it's just a little sprinkle and it's not going to be enough to go on to inters, I'm not sure it even shows up on the forecast. But assuming on the fact that if I would have to go on to inters, I wanted to get the absolute most possible out of my mediums, and then obviously this is if the Joe thing didn't happen, and then go on to the hards, and then I'm cutting the hard stint short rather than medium stint short, so I get the most out of the quicker tire, and then I'm not having to deal with the slower tires much, and then still get onto the right tires being the inters. I don't think that would have worked if I stuck to that strategy. It seemed like staying hard to the end was definitely, hard to the inters was definitely the way to go. Yeah, it wasn't just let's just see what happens kind of thing.
Okay. So you were basically in the mindset of there's guaranteed to be one pit stop before the inters, and then one for the inters, and then possibly one after the inters as well. So you basically immediately thought that there was going to be a 3-stop.
Yeah, I think I underestimated how long the hards could go and still be competitive, because as far as I know, they didn't really drop off much before the inters. So I think had I known how good they would have been throughout, I would have gone with that. But that's obviously just with hindsight.
Yeah.
And yeah, with what I was thinking, I thought I was going to get the most out of it, but then things happened, and
yeah. I mean, fair enough. Certainly a consideration to make. To say, hey, maybe no tire will last until the rain. That is definitely a possibility. But yeah, ultimately P6 today, and let me just quickly pull this up here. P7 in the standings still. You're on 90 points now, 9 behind Van Heffen, 19 behind GB68, and then 34 behind Bushian. So not all is lost in your chase to defend your title. But today, I don't think you helped yourself a lot either. But sometimes you have those weekends.
Yeah, sometimes. But also, I don't think I'm in the title fight whatsoever. I
Oh.
think I've been out of it for races and races. I've already counted myself out of it. I'll honestly be shocked if I get higher than P7 now. Genuinely, like,
Oh,
even if
wow.
there are people missing races, I think I'm getting the best I can now
Oh, wow.
out of this season.
Okay, are you then focusing more on the constructors, on the team?
Yeah, I
settings?
just want to make sure I can help Ben secure the constructors, which that's going well. 67 points in
Yeah.
front. So yeah, that's the only thing I'm focusing on now. So like now, I think even if I'm on better tires or whatever, I might start letting Ben through more, just to make sure he can go for the drivers now. Trying to at least get both of us a championship, whether it's me or him.
Have you been
Yeah.
looking too much at Valtteri Bottas's Twitter by any chance?
Maybe I need to make a Bottas-inspired helmet for the last third of the season.
Possibly. Anything else to add there, Badger?
No.
No? Okay, cool. Very good. So, thanks very much for joining us and stuff. We will see you a little bit later on. We've got one more person who wants to come in and have a little bit of a chat with us now, and that is Meraki. Let's get them in now. And
Hello.
here he is. Were you humming a little tune to yourself or something? There was the end of a noise there as you came in.
I was. I can't lie.
What was the song? What were you?
Baddest of them all.
Ah, I see. Is that a comment on your drive today, or?
What, in terms of like being actually bad, or
I don't know. It could be interpreted in all sorts of different ways. You know, I mean it with love, of course, always. Yeah, talk us through that one then, from your perspective. I mean, at the end there, fantastic final corner battle that was going on. I mean, talk us through that incident first of all.
there wasn't really much to it. I just tried to keep as much battery ready because I knew Ben is quite good at like charging his battery and I guess keeping it clean, being consistent and stuff. So I kind of had to do the same and try and charge a bit of battery, which typically I'm not very good at. But yeah, we managed to keep a bit of battery going down the back straight, and got past him. He honestly did a good overtake down the inside and got back ahead, and then I just held it around the outside into the second last corner. There's a little bit of contact, but I was squeezed onto the curb, so there wasn't really anywhere that I could go in that situation. There were some people that were a little bit upset at it, but it is what it is. It was the best I could hope for in that race, really, considering the strat at the start. So, yeah, I'm happy.
Absolutely, as you should be, I think, after that one. What did you think after qualifying in particular? Did you think that the win was within shot, or did you think that, well, maybe the best we're going to do today is a podium or a bit further back?
Yeah, so my main goal really was to get at least P6 and finish ahead of Ben. Because based on Yorick, I didn't expect Yorick's qualifying pace to be that good. I expected Bushy to be right up there, but I messed up my lap a little bit in the first sector. But Yorick kind of caught me off guard, and then in the first stint of the race, Yorick just flew away. He was on something. So yeah, I knew at that point I wasn't going to be able to beat Yorick, and I knew with me being on the mediums at the start and GB and Bushy being on the hards, it was going to be a bit of a dodgy race. So yeah. It was. I don't think I could have got any higher than what I did today. I'm just very happy that I kind of got past Ben towards the end because it helps in the championship, I guess.
Absolutely, all helps, and of course, you again with another good result, you've been able to just close things up all that more. Now, looking towards the back end of the season, do you reckon? Do you know what championship is a possibility here, or are you sort of thinking to yourself maybe a bit similar to Safso before, who was in the commentary box just before you? Are you thinking maybe? Maybe championship is not quite within reach, and so I'll aim for a slightly lower target instead.
I don't know, because I may or may not be here next weekend. So if I'm not here, and say Alex or Ben wins, that's 25 points that I'd have to try and claw back. And I think it's the last 3 races after that. So I think it's Monaco, Spain, and then Austria, if I don't make Imola. But yeah, if I am here, the tracks remaining on, I guess I would say my strongest, but obviously I'm still going to try. It'd be funny if I can win the title without winning a race this season, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
If we get one race winning, then we can give you the title of Keke Rosberg or something like that. You know? That would work.
I'll take that.
Yeah, exactly. Very good. Any questions from you, Badger, for Meraki?
Yeah, it's gonna be the same vein again. For the viewers, it's probably gonna be a bit boring at this point. But I want to know what was your decision process to start on the mediums? Were you looking at the rain, going, the mediums will get me there, or were you just thinking, there's gonna be a pit stop for everyone, or were you just saying, rain, don't really care, we'll just wait for safety cars, or what was going into your decision there?
So the issue with that was I just assumed we'd get a safety car at some point near the start of the race. That was the only reason why I started. Because I was almost going to go on hards, and then, to be fair, my chat said, no, I go on mediums. And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. And, yeah, I thought it was a better idea because obviously I saw Bushy and GB on the hards, and then me on the mediums. I thought we could get a gap if there was a safety car. You know, we're kind of, like, clear to them and stuff. But, yeah, it was in hindsight, should have started on the hards because maybe I could have maybe won the race because I might have had the race pace on GB and Bushy. Definitely not Yorit, but yeah, I went onto the hards on my stop purely because I wanted to keep the softs if it dried up with the rain, which obviously it did. It kind of worked out in the end, and I gambled by not going on the mediums because, you know, I hoped it wasn't going to get like wet enough to you know, stop on the inters. So hard was realistically the only tire that I could have gone on, I think.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, that was pretty much it. That was my decision making that race, really.
Yeah, and then what was your decision making for pitting on lap 28? I mean, what were your tires on? 78%, 79, something like that.
It's something like that. It's something like that.
Why so late? I thought you were gonna get a puncture.
Oh, I very nearly did. But I honestly was just hoping that it would start raining. Like if I saw a drop of rain, I would have gone straight on the inters, and then I think I would have been okay. But yeah, I just tried to hold it out as much as I could, and the rain never really came. But it didn't make that much of a difference because I think Yorit is always going to finish ahead, and with GB and Bushy on the hards, they were always going to finish ahead as well, no matter what time I pitted. So
yeah, fair enough.
But that was it. P4 was the best I could have got today, so yeah, I'm happy.
Yeah, and good result, and a result that gets you into the championship lead. So
yeah,
how bad can it really be?
Right, exactly. No race wins leading the championship. I can't complain.
Yeah,
absolutely. Right. Well, thank you very much for joining us then, and hopefully next week. You are here with us, and you're not running off to do other more important things, which of course is what it must only be to be missing the Creator Series, because you know it would have to be something more important. But thank you very much for joining us here in the comms box and giving us a good race as well.
Nice. Cheers, guys.
Thank you very much. So, bye-bye. That's it then, Badger, and that's it, chat. So, thanks very much, everybody who is still watching. It's our sort of sedate time at the end of the show, I suppose, where we can just sort of talk things through and sort of, you know, wonder what might have been and that sort of a thing. But I think that from me, it's been a great race. It's been a great evening. And, of course, there is this small event, what's it called? Eurovision or some such thing is supposed to be happening sometime this evening.
Never heard of that.
No, never heard of that either. But that's allegedly going on tonight, hence our earlier start and finish time. But thank you very, very much for watching, and I hope that you do enjoy the rest of your evening. Badger, where can the good people of the internet find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitch here at Badgerman. You may have seen me in the chat a couple times earlier, as well as on Twitter at Badgerman TV. However, I finally got rid of the 3 on Twitter, so it's just the word Badger, the word man, and I guess the word TV, just all together in one, and you'll be able to find me there on Twitter. I'm trying to get Badgerman without the 3 on Twitch, but right now the name is not available, so it's a bit of a tricky one.
Well, we need to launch some sort of inquiry, clearly, to make sure that people we can discover who it is who holds the elusive Badgerman
nobody
handle.
right now. Nobody right now.
Nobody.
It got freed up in I think within the last 2 months or so, but in order for it to be available to another user, it has to be 6 months. So I'm just waiting at this point when it becomes available.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what then. Thanks very much, Badger. And Ferrari strategist, awfully apt that they completely missed what was going on, but it was Bushy Ants who won the race here today. But thanks very much for joining us for that one, Ferrari strategist. As far as where you can find me on the internet, my handle Harrius is posted in the chat there. It's twitch.tv/Daniel Gilligan, and then you can find me on Instagram at DA Gilligan. But for the rest of today, in about 45 minutes time, I'm going back live over on Williams Esports. So if you want to see their coverage of the 24 hours of the Nordschleife, then go and check us out over there, and you will hear more of my dulcet tones as I talk about endurance racing and all that sort of a things. But from the rest of us, I hope that you enjoy the rest of your days, your evenings, whatever it is that you do. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night.